I'm your cult boyfriend. Today we're talking about Pretty Little Liars, a new journey on the channel. On Your Cult Boyfriend, what we like to do most is analyze and study teen drama. And Pretty Little Liars is a show that's always been on my radar. Of course, it's been on my radar. It's a huge show, it's a behemoth, it's a massive teen drama, one of the most defining teen dramas in the history of the art form. I have never watched a single episode until this analysis video series started. The show's got me excited. It's going to be a pretty long show. This show ran from 2010 to 2017 on ABC Family and Freeform, the newly rebranded ABC Family. Talks about themes of friendship, loyalty, betrayal, love, murder. The name we're going to have to become most familiar with is the auteur showrunner behind Pretty Little Liars, Marlene King, who is very good, is very good. Pretty Little Liars follows four friends who are being stalked, haunted, taunted by a cyber stalker, or just a stalker in general, actually, named A, who is kind of giving them clues, making fun of them, testing them, uh, all because of their friend. There used to be five of them, and now there's four. Their friend Allison was like the leader of this kind of super petty and kind of a radically a dangerous sort of a group of teenage girls. Allison was murdered. And now the four that are left are trying to figure out exactly what happened to her, while simultaneously they're also trying to come of age, trying to mature, trying to heal past trauma, trying to work through current woes and dilemmas. That's essentially what the story of Pretty Little Liars is. And our four liars, I think are great. Well, okay, 75% of them are great. We have Aria, we have Emily, we have Hannah, and we have Spencer. Now, I like all of them except for one, and I think I'll talk about that one last. We'll talk about my favorite one first, which is Spencer. Spencer is a very cool character. I think that she's most engaging because of she's the best performed out of all of the characters. Florian Belisario is an intensely good actor. And as the show progresses, she's given more and more to do because I feel like the showrunner and the creatives involved behind the scenes saw that Troyan was kind of acting circles around the other three, which isn't really to, I'm not really trying to criticize the other three too much. It's just that Troyan Belisario is just too good. She's just too good to be limited to the kind of standard archetypes and architecture of storylines that the other three are kind of confined to. Spencer is really cool. So there's part Paris Geller here. There's part Blair Waldorf. She's an interesting amalgamation of a lot of archetypes that we've seen before, a lot of character types that we've seen before. She is like the preppy rich girl who is being framed. Ultimately, she's being framed for a murder, and she's also this preppy rich girl who has a, a perverse tendency to hook up with her sister's boyfriends, um, which lends to some interesting concepts about like she wants what she can't have, that sort of thing. But also her sister is insane. Uh, I also just feel like she's insane because she's played by Psycho Carrie from One Tree Hill. That's the thing about this show. There are so many different characters, so many different actors who played the like character actors from teen drama. So like side characters will pop up in here. If I had to list every single actor from every single teen drama or teen film that appeared in the first season of Pretty Little Liars, I would be here forever. Right now, we're just talking about Spencer. Her archetype is kind of like the rich girl in the destroyed room of personality. Because even when we first meet Spencer, she is like she's already kind of like falling apart, or she's already deconstructed to begin with. That's kind of the cool thing about Allison dying. You get the sense that when they were all together, they seem to like occupy their very specific social roles in ways that were more standard and more standard lines, right? And her death, I think, at least in the pilot, they're all separated and they're all kind of like deconstructed and falling apart in a to a large degree. But this might come down to Troyan's portrayal of Spencer, but her deconstruction, like that we enter into her character with is so palpable, and like it's completely accessible to the audience more so than the others. Spencer is a character who seems kind of tortured 90% of the time, which makes for a very heartbreaking sort of character with an awful lot of pathos. Like even when she is clearly um kind of tempting the fates or doing something that the audience is supposed to disagree with, we still feel for her because of the not only the portrayal of the actress, but also of the writing. I, Marlene King is actually very good at writing. And I know this is another show that's based on a popular series of YA novels. And just like Gossip Girl, I'm not going to read them. I don't care. And also, when you transform something into a show, it's ultimately very transformative and probably bears little resemblance to the source material. And even if it is like an entirely faithful adaptation of the source material, I don't care. I'm focusing on this show, so I'm giving I, Marlene King kind of most of the credit when it comes to the frameworks that we're actually exploring these characters and scenarios within. And Spencer, to me, is the most grappling and gripping character available. Um, like I said, I feel like Spencer is this rich girl, this preppy girl who seems entirely put together. I love her wardrobe, and her wardrobe is just so kind of like immaculate, so deliberately arranged and designed that you get the sense that she is so perfectly put together, so kind of refined and so calm, cool, and collected. You get the idea of someone of wealth. And I think she has the most beautifully composed and designed arc of the first season because she's clearly a girl who's like crying out for help. And it's not help like to be saved from her good name being tarnished, or to be saved from her family's kind of cruel perception of her based on her past behavior, which she seems to be blamed for entirely. People like Ian and the first British boyfriend or whatever from the pilot of her sisters, they don't really seem to catch any sort of flack for for going out of their way to trying to hook up with a minor who is your girlfriend or fiance's sister nonetheless. She's carrying not only the weight of the world on her shoulders, but the weight of all personality, the weight of the show on her shoulders. And I think this is a show that is at least cognizant of its own making. Because when they talk about Allison, they refer to her as a movie. And Spencer has a lot of these lines, and that's why I'm still focusing on Spencer here. And I'll make like a rather grand point about Spencer in just a few minutes. But when they talk about Allison, they're like, Allison was a movie. They're like, I feel like I'm in a movie. This is so surreal. And they're like, well, Allison was a movie. And then Spencer and Allison have this falling out in a flashback where she talks about like the concept of leadership. And I think it's a really kind of inspired exchange of words here, a harsh exchange of words, where Spencer is like, see, you think we won't exist without you, Allison. But what if you don't exist without us? Spencer is a character who is tortured by the authoritative idea of legacy. And it's Allison's legacy. It's also the legacy of her family, which is a very wealthy and well off and well to do family. Spencer doesn't seem to liberate herself in any kind of like considerable way until she starts to approach Toby, who was this weird kid. And we'll talk about Toby a bit more after we focus on the four main liars. But Toby is considered a freak. He was the first person who was framed for the murder of Allison, and Spencer is the second one who was framed for the murder of Allison, and they have a romantic connection together. And it's one of the romantic connections on the show that I actually buy in its totality. I really like them together. There's a great amount of chemistry. And I feel that she feels safe with Toby. And it's a liberating a part of herself, the girlhood in captivity part of herself. She's a girlhood in captivity, and what is she like a captive within? What's her prison cell? It's the destroyed room of personality because she's kind of unallowed to come of age in the ways that her friends are. A mansion is huge, but a mansion can also for certain kind of tortured young girls who are confused about their personality and like their aggressive tendencies. A huge mansion can also just be a huge prison cell. And and I think we can kind of extend that to like her her wardrobe, which I'm such a fan of. It does speak wealth. It does speak in volumes of wealth. She seems very well to do and preppy and put together, and which is an extension of the prison cell, which is the mansion of her house. And even when she's out in public, she's still shackled. 'Cause I think that like her ties, her blazers, her amazing wardrobe is kind of a prison uniform. Ironically, counterintuitively, it is a prison uniform. And even Toby makes this comment of like she's lying down on the bed studying, and he says, "Are you like you can't be comfortable wearing that tie and that jacket right now?" And she becomes kind of self-conscious for a moment, and says, "No, I am comfortable," because we're only in season one, so we're not going to get like a full character arc, but she does become a bit more liberated, and I thought that the characterization, um, Torian Bellisario is an incredible actress, and I think our I Marlene King, her writing and her basic design of the overall composition of the show was at its most powerful when we were focusing on Spencer Hastings. I thought she was an outrageously good character. The second liar I'd like to talk about is Emily Fields. Emily has a kind of paint by numbers coming out story. What's cool about that is that Bianca Lawson was her primary love interest for the first half of the season. And Bianca Lawson, I think, played a 16-year-old for 20 years. We've talked about her in past videos of different series on the channel. We've talked about her on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We've talked about her on Dawson's Creek. I don't know if we talked about her on The Vampire Diaries, but I know she was in it. I haven't finished The Vampire Diaries, but I know she was on that show. And now here she is in Pretty Little Liars. She's an unsung teen drama queen. Is your teen drama even real if Bianca Lawson isn't in it? Like, she's so sexy, bro, and she's awesome in this show. Um, I was a bigger fan of her than I was of Emily, to be honest. But nonetheless, Emily is a good character, or that there's at least a great amount of potential for her character to be great. She's nowhere near Spencer levels of captivating, but Shay Mitchell does do an extremely good job with the material that she's given. I think her second love interest is Mose from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, which was kind of off-putting for most of it, to be honest. 'Cause I'm like, oh my God, it's fucking Mose. What is she doing here, being so weird and awkward and kind of cruel most of the time on screen in Pretty Little Liars? She was kind of a bully. But Emily and her end up forming a sort of relationship. Um, in 2010, I feel like coming out stories must have been kind of passe. I don't think they're unnecessary to tell and retell and reshape and reform. I just feel like it's not as taboo as it was. You know, we've talked about Jack coming out on Dawson's Creek, and I feel like that was a new and fresh concept, something that was kind of controversial. But in 2010, is a coming out story still that um unexpected or still that controversial? I can't believe that it is. I refuse to believe that it is, to be honest. So her stories felt kind of dated. But there's a great amount of potential for her character, and I'm excited to see where we go. I didn't hate my time with Emily at all. I did feel like, so far as a coming out tale goes, I think it's a I think it is necessary to always retell coming out stories in case there's a new generation of kids who are uncomfortable with the idea of being real about their sexuality and being open and honest with their family and friends about it. I think it's always good to retell those stories. And I think all things considered, the coming out story, her that's her arc. That's basically all she does this entire season. Um, like all things considered, it is done delicately and with care and with a little bit more complexity than I think it's given credit for, but at the same time, I feel that it is passe and it is kind of easy. There might be a little bit of laziness when it came to Emily crafting her character here, whereas with Spencer and with the next character I'm going to talk about, Hannah, though the writing and the composition was a lot more attentive and a lot more complicated and sophisticated. So let's talk about Hannah now. Ashley Benson, incredible, incredible looking too. Actually, okay, all they're called Pretty Little Liars. They're all unreasonably attractive, so I won't single any of them out. Ashley Benson is very good in this role as well. Hannah Hannah went through so many different changes. In fact, just like kind of Spencer, when we come in and we realize we're looking at a girl, Spencer is this living, walking poetry, the symbol of girlhood in captivity of the destroyed room of personality. That's a mouthful, but that's what Spencer is. I love her to death. She's very complicated. Hannah, when we first come in, she's already like a reformed archetype because she used to be hefty Hannah, as Allison would make fun of her for being kind of overweight. And also Allison and Emily had a kind of romantic pairing in the past as well. Spencer and Allison kind of were not antagonistic towards each other, but I think that Allison could recognize Spencer's natural aptitude for leadership and how Spencer was obviously smarter than Hannah. I think that Allison was intimidated by Hannah. Um, Allison had interesting dynamics and unique dynamics with each of our main liars here, and with Hannah, it was kind of making fun of her for being overweight or uh, well, yeah, it was making fun of her for being overweight, because I was like, "But didn't she teach her how to, lose weight?" "Oh, yeah, by becoming bulimic. She taught her how to throw up." That's entirely unhelpful and dangerous, Allison. Oh, we'll get to Allison too, don't you worry. But Hannah goes through a lot of interesting things, a lot of interesting dynamics with different sorts of boys like Sean, Lucas, and the fuck is the bad boy's name? Caleb, who Caleb is the most interesting person she came in contact with romantically. Lucas is nice guy cringe, and Sean is who the fuck even is Sean? His personality changes every single episode. I don't care. His personality changes all the time. But his friend Noel, I hope we see more of. He was cool. He was a fun little kind of unknown variable, like a wrecking ball of sorts. He was kind of cool. I like Noel. I hope we get more Noel. I don't care about Sean. I don't care about Lucas. But Caleb was fun. Caleb had an interesting amount of chemistry with Hannah, and Hannah has kind of reformed herself into the queen bee, like the most attractive, um, the most superficial and desirable girl at school, that kind of thing. And over time, she becomes a lot more sincere within that archetype. Like we see the authenticity of the hefty Hannah persona kind of enter into this new kind of publicly gorgeous one. And I think she becomes like a pretty damn good person by the end of the season. And oh man, you want to talk about a character that gets punished? I mean, she gets run over by a car. She gets her heart broken several times. I think she's the most punished out of all of the liars. And I don't exactly know why. Perhaps Marlene King thinks that, and she'd be right, that Ashley Benson is at her most cinematic when she is in peril. And as an actress and as a character, like it's very interesting to see Hannah, this incredibly like beautiful young girl, just kind of crying so much and being vulnerable so often. Um, it hits a more primal part of what is cinematically kind of thrilling to see, but it's it's wonderfully done. I would say Spencer and Hannah are the two characters who are done wonderfully. Emily, I believe there's laziness around it, but it her character is compensated for in other ways. I still wouldn't call her a misfire. Spencer is the brilliant character here, who I love to watch. Arya, Arya is the character that I could do without. I don't like Arya. I don't like her story. I don't like Mr. Fitz. I don't like the weird kind of moral nihilism that we enter into with Arya while they're trying to insist on placing so much meaning and importance on this in entirely inappropriate relationship that she's in with her teacher for the entire season. I don't like Arya. I don't like her psychology. I don't like her philosophy. I don't like the way that she interacts with the people around her. And I don't think this is Lucy Hale's fault. But I'm also kind of unimpressed with Lucy Hale as an actor in this. I'm kind of unimpressed with her performance. Everything feels very safe. I feel like the character itself could have been more interesting if we had an actor who was doing something like remotely different with the archetype. But I've seen this archetype 1,000 times before, and I've seen it done better most of the time. Arya is just very boring, and I think when the show started, she was supposed to be our central character, and then over time, Spencer certainly occupied that role. Kind of took the central position of the show away from her. Uh, and Arya is just entirely boring. Her parents are boring. Her brother is boring. Everything about Arya is boring. And no actor involved with the Arya storylines are even attempting to make it engaging. Like Mr. Fitz is a very boring actor and unlikable character. Lucy Hale is just seemingly uninvolved with most of the scenes that she's in. Her parents get way too much screen time. I don't care about them at all. So Arya, I'm sorry, Arya is she flopped. She flopped on my viewing. There was really nothing to engage with here. There's something to engage with when you put them all together. When all four liars are on screen together, there is a great amount of iconography being forged. You sense a great deal of power when you see the four of them share a frame, reading a text in unison. It's like sleep well, bitches. But Spencer is the one who gets to have the final showdown with the big bad of this season, who is Ryan Merriman, fucking smart house guy, coming back from my youth to try to give me some nightmares here. They couldn't have been more obvious that Ian was going to be the big bad. I don't think Ian actually killed Allison. We don't even know if Ian's truly dead because his body is missing. But for all intents and purposes, he is the big bad because he tries to murder Spencer. He tries to murder Spencer at the very end. And he also preyed on Spencer when she was young. But really, hold up a picture of of Ian and hold up a picture of Mr. Fitz and tell me to spot the difference. And I'll tell you it's the same goddamn picture. Those are both inappropriate relationships. Yet Mr. Fitz is treated like this romantic martyr within the show's context, whereas Ian is just creepy beyond belief. Like fuck off. They're you can't vilify one character for doing the exact same thing as another, but Ian is a bad character. So is Mr. Fitz, that's my point. Ian is a very bad character, the very bad man. He's such an obvious choice that if you're surprised at all by him being the big central villain, the big bad of the season, if you're surprised at all, you're surprised because of how obvious it was. Because this is a show that is a murder mystery, and it loves its red herrings. It loves its red herrings almost as much as Rob Thomas did, which gets me into an interesting side note, or actually a very interesting point of insight, point of interest. This show is a lot like Veronica Mars. I believe it's probably a good blend of Veronica Mars and Desperate Housewives, but I don't know much about Desperate Housewives, but I at least know the vibe, and I do get the vibe from Pretty Little Liars. I know a lot about Veronica Mars. I have her name tattooed on my body twice, and we've covered her on the channel a lot. I I love the show. I think it's perfect. And they even reference it's one of the few shows they actually do reference in Pretty Little Liars, which makes me think that I am Arlene King and the network, the showrunner, the writers, they kind of knew that they were aping his style. This is a show that is very inspired by Veronica Mars. Veronica would have solved this mystery in under 45 minutes, though, and now the mystery is still ongoing. We don't know who A is. I'm not convinced Ian actually killed Allison because there was some line about like I pushed her down and you should see the mark on her head, and then Spencer said she died of suffocation or something. I don't. Oh my God, I remember it was so frustrating because they may have said how Allison died, like in episode 3 or 4 or something, but I forgot, and they never went back to it, so I never really knew the cause of death for Allison. So when they found that trophy, I'm like, oh, I guess it was like bludgeoned to death. I guess it was blunt force trauma. But then something about suffocation by Spencer at the very end to kind of throw you off the scent of Ian, but it's compositionally kind of interesting because Ian is still, regardless of whether or not he really killed Allison, is Like I think Ian thinks he killed Allison, but I don't think he did. I think it's one of those kind of twists. But Ian is still trying to murder Spencer regardless. So like there's a lot of sensory overload there, which is something that Rob Thomas did with his mysteries often. I think that Rob Thomas and Veronica Mars, Rob Thomas is the showrunner of Veronica Mars. That's why I'm saying his name. I'm not talking about the fucking guy from Matchbox 20. I'm talking about Rob Thomas, the showrunner of Veronica Mars. Um, this show owes a lot to Veronica Mars, and Veronica Mars being one of my favorite shows on the planet. They couldn't have picked a better thing to be influenced by, to be inspired by. I wouldn't call it a ripoff at all, but I love that I can see Veronica here. I love that I can see the tapestry of Veronica Mars here, because this is a show that is obsessed with its red herrings. It's obsessed with going down dead end avenues that the show knows are dead ends, and that should frustrate you, but you feel better for it because you get to know these red herrings better and they come back in a different kind and they occupy a different sort of intent in later episodes. Really, there's a lot of Veronica Mars and Pretty Little Liars. I am here for it. Can I talk about Toby and Jenna? Can I please now talk about Toby and Jenna? Oh my gosh. What fucking show did they fucking walk out of? All right. Toby is normalized by the end of the season, but when you first see Toby leading blind Jenna down a hallway, it's like these two just walked out of a different show altogether. They don't belong here. What are these fucking psychopaths doing on my Pretty Little Liars show? Which kind of brings me back to the point about Allison being a movie. Allison had all of these ulterior motives and was fucking with so many different people that I think there were a thousand different kind of like genres all surrounding her. A bunch of different shows, a bunch of different movies, a bunch of different everything, plot lines and narratives and meta narratives all surrounding this girl, Allison. And she was involved in so many different kinds of genres and stories and styles. And we're able to see a lot of the different people that she fucked with. And we're seeing like shades of the romantic comedy. We're seeing shades of um coming of age, obviously. And with Jenna and Toby, we're getting something a lot darker and more intense. We're getting something subversive. Whenever you see Jenna, Jenna is one of my favorite characters on the show because she is pure cinema. She is incredible. I think the actress does incredible, and I think that she does her most when she speaks the least. Like she just has such a dominating presence. Those dark black sunglasses, the black wardrobe, like and the fact that she is blind with her cane and you hear the tap tap tapping or you just hear her voice pop out of nowhere like the jerk of her head, she seems more perceptive than anybody else and yet she can't see a goddamn thing. I didn't trust this chick so much that I was like, this bitch ain't even blind, this bitch ain't even blind, there's no way. I don't trust a single thing that Jenna does. I love that the show made me so paranoid over this blind girl, and I love Jenna so much. She is pure cinema. She's pure style. Like whenever she shows up in a scene, whenever she's confronted, whenever she confronts the liars, it's a different show. It's a different show where the logic kind of changes because we're in like genre tropes now. We're in like B movie paradise whenever she shows up, like reminding me of Vampira in a way. Like she just shows up and she's just all presence. And that presence is dark and morbid dread. And I love Jenna so much. I hope to see more of her. I hope we're not done with her. I like her a lot. She's a less is more character. Absolutely a less is more character. Toby is normalized. Toby starts off as a seemingly psychotic person as well because she's like the right hand of Jenna, who they have like not an incestual relation because they are step siblings, but Jenna did, I guess, force Toby to maintain a sexual relationship with him with her, I'm sorry, or else she would claim that Toby forced himself on her. Jenna's very, very interesting, very, very interesting character, devious and devilish. Love her to death. Toby is normalized over the course of the show as Spencer starts to liberate herself more from the captivity of the girlhood of perfectionism. As she starts to free herself more, Toby becomes more normalized, and you start to see a real sensitive kind of kid under all of that psychotic, stylish garb of the stylish compositions that you first saw him within. But Jenna, I don't think you can normalize Jenna, and definitely don't try to normalize Jenna. I want Jenna to always be this weird specter, this weird haunting ghoulish figure in the corner. I love her so much. She's perfect. She does not belong in this show, and that's what makes her so incredible to watch. Because, like I said, whenever she shows up, the the rules of the genre change. It's a very genre bending show, which Pretty Little Liars, I haven't seen this brought up too much. It bends genres effortlessly because when Jenna is there, it's not a teen drama anymore. It's like it's like a De Palma-esque erotic thriller from the 80s, okay? Like it's no like she has Jalo fucking parts. Like she looks like a villain in a Dario Argento movie. It's incredible. The show bends genres constantly. It's a very transformative show, and I'm pretty impressed by it. Would I call this season great? No. No. Would I call it very good? No, because we spend half of our time is spent with Arya and with Emily, who I feel are the products of laziness and just stupidity for Arya. Like half of the show to me is not worth interacting with, at least not on an analytical level. But the time we spend with Spencer and Hannah and Jenna, these are very fruitful storylines and arcs. So I would call it good. I would not call it very good, and I would not call it great. I would call it good, and I would call it occasionally incredibly deeply fascinating. Allison is deeply fascinating. Allison is very much so like Amanda Seyfried's Lily Kane from the first season of Veronica Mars. But where Lily Kane, you can figure out the symbolism of Lily Kane pretty well. She's like the concept of the American teen dream, like the idealized form of teen dreams that was murdered by uh, patriarchal authority figures. It's more difficult to tell exactly what Allison is symbolizing, which makes the show a little bit more complex in a couple different ways. Because in flashbacks, she's perceived mostly as the mentor, mostly as this kind of negative force in these girls' lives, and yet these girls are trying desperately to kind of find her killer. And the more steps they take in the direction and pursuit of the killer, they are kind of tested and punished by outside forces for doing that. And I really hope that they ask themselves why they care so much, because I don't know why they do. I really don't. Like the symbolism isn't there yet for Allison. Like, what did she represent to these four girls? Does she represent like that darker part, like the shadow archetypes of these four girls? That is entirely possible. That's also almost completely boring. I want it to be something a bit more than that. I get that she represents maybe like the id or the like the darker parts, like the twisted mirror universe versions of our four liars, but there's got to be something more there. And even if that is the case, why would the liars um, seemingly try like so desperately to keep her memory intact? I hope that they question the point of it all, because based on a lot of the flashbacks of Allison that we are shown on the television show, she's not worth mourning. And that in itself can be really powerful. If just one of the liars says, "I don't give a fuck about Allison anymore," that would be really cool for me to see. To see that kind of, 'cause it goes back to one of the most interesting exchanges with Spencer and them, like, "Allison, you think we won't exist without you, but you won't exist without us. Let's test that theory. Let's see it. I want to see that work." Because currently Allison's right, because the momentum of all of the characters on Pretty Little Liars is dictated by a dead girl, is dictated by Allison. So far, this show obviously would not exist without Allison's death, without Allison herself as this constant presence, this ghostly one, this apparition or a flashback, this mystery that needs desperately to be solved. Um, our four characters would not exist without Allison. So far, Allison's more important than the four liars, and I kind of want our four liars to regain a sense of narrative autonomy. I want one of them to go, "Fuck this Allison thing. I don't care." Do I care? Yeah, yeah. I want to know what actually happened to Allison, but I want one of our characters to just kind of because they're tethered intimately to her. I want one of them to just pull the umbilical and go, you know what? No, no more, no more. Allison made me bulimic. Allison made me paranoid. Allison, romantically like abused me. Like fuck that. Fuck you, Allison. I want them to kind of get mad at Allison, like at her spirit, at her memory, because then we can get into some really interesting territory of being mad at the ghost of the girl you were as you're coming of age. As coming of age is a deconstruction of your youth. It's about maturity and becoming mad at the person you used to be, like reviling her. Um, I think that would be really interesting to see. So I hope that that's where we go to. I also hope that this mystery doesn't last all 7 seasons. I think it's 7 seasons, bro. I hope it doesn't last all seven because there's no way I'm gonna be this caring 6 seasons from now. Um, but I did say it's just a good show, but there is so much potential here for Pretty Little Liars to be a great show. And it holding such a place of high regard and esteem in the teen drama pantheon of television, uh, I think more it's the likeliest thing is that there will be at least one masterwork season. I don't know when that's going to be. It wasn't season one, but that's fine. That's fine. Here's hoping it's season two because I think this show has a lot of sophistications if it would just kind of flesh them out a little bit more. If you could just flesh them out more, this show would be perfect. Just a little bit more. Thank you for watching. I hope you stick with me on this new journey. Pretty Little Liars is a show about hyper reality. It's a show that can go pretty extreme. And I think it's a good show. My name is your cult boyfriend. We're here to talk about the second season, that's one, two, of Pretty Little Liars. This is the season where we find out who A is. It's okay. Where do I even want to start with it? Firstly, it's a 25 episode long season, and I think it's structured and paced extraordinarily well for being a season that is slightly longer than your typical 22 episode long run. I believe originally ABC Family or Freeform ordered 24 episodes, and then they forced another episode on them for their 30 or 31 days of Halloween, whatever it is that ABC Family does. So then I, Marlene King, the showrunner of Pretty Little Liars, and the writers, they whipped up very quickly a Halloween special, which is a flashback episode. And I'm just very impressed by even though that flashback Halloween episode that comes in the middle of this season after the spring finale, even though that was unplanned, there is so much forward momentum in that episode. And I actually get to hang out with Allison and I actually get to like Allison for like the first time in the whole show. One of my criticisms from season one was like, why does anyone care about Allie? Why? She doesn't seem like someone who was worth mourning or feeling sorry over. I just couldn't really comprehend it. And watching the Halloween episode, I was like, oh, I get it. She was a firecracker. She was pretty cool. She was certainly a free spirit. Another one of my criticisms from the first season was I wished that any one of the liars like me felt that like, hey Allie, you're a bad person and I don't care anymore about solving all of your many labyrinthine mysteries. I don't care anymore about it. And that actually happened in, I believe, episode 4 of season 2 when they're all forced to see a therapist called Dr. Sullivan, or compelled to see a therapist. Um, Hannah actually is going through an exercise where she's speaking with Allison, a psychological therapeutic exercise, and in it she's like, Allie, You were mean to me, and I hate you, and I'm over it, basically. And she has every right to say that. Fucking bitch made her bulimic. Let's examine the liars one by one again, like last time. Spencer continues to be my favorite liar. She is my favorite character, and I believe Troyan Belisario is still acting circles around the other three, around most everyone else on the entire show. She is incredibly engaging to watch. She delivers every line with a great amount of commitment and even at times self-awareness. She is by far the most talented and capable performer on the entire show, which makes Spencer a very kind of deep and rich character. We're still dealing with a girl who is kind of battling the authoritative idea of legacy. In season two, they put even a greater emphasis on her battles with her family, considering that both her father and her sister Melissa are prime suspects for being A this time around. So there's a greater emphasis put on the idea that Spencer is kind of symbolic of girlhood and captivity, and that captivity is the arrested development of wealth, of family, of the kind of upper crust elite secrecy that always comes from that seems to stem from exorbitant privilege. So Spencer is still being fleshed out and is still doing some really cool things this season. I love watching Spencer. She's always extraordinarily entertaining and offers the most things to interact with as a serious viewer. There's always something kind of grappling going on with Spencer. Basically, this season, Pretty Little Liars is an extraordinarily consistent show, right? Because we can kind of lift everything I said about the liars and kind of apply it to season two. There's not really an incredible amount of new territory, at least not with Spencer, which is fine because Spencer was already kind of like a multi-layered, multifaceted sort of character. And I just love that we're exploring the themes and thematics, the aesthetics and the behavior of her character in more depth. I love exploring Spencer, but you can honestly kind of lift everything I said about the liars in my original season one analysis and apply it directly to season two again, because we're just kind of exploring these concepts further, which isn't a slight against the show at all. Especially when you have created a character that is as grappling and as gravitational and captivating is really the word for Spencer Hastings. She's a captivating character. If you've created a character that is as captivating as Spencer, what you're supposed to do is just kind of explore more of her and don't like convolute her character with unnecessary narrative baggage. Really just explore what you already have because it's a gold mine. Spencer Hastings is a gold mine, honestly. Emily got to be a bit more interesting this season. I liked her in season one, but I did feel that her coming out story was kind of lazy. This season, she it auto focuses on Emily Fields, and I really liked Shay Mitchell's performance. I thought she was extremely good in the role, and we really get to explore Emily as she's challenged again and again and again and punished over and over and over again by the narrative, by her own heartstrings, right? Emily is honestly the primary target of A this season. She's identified very early on in the season as the weak link of the four. So A goes out of her way to kind of single Emily out and torture her and punish her and put her through all of these different kinds of trials and tribulations. I think that Emily rose to the occasion and revealed herself to be a pretty heroic, all things considered. And she's also a lot more mature in her romantic relationships this time around. I love that we get Maya back. Um, I guess she's dead now, but I loved seeing Bianca Lawson again. Always the sexiest woman on any show she's ever a part of. Which brings me to a question. Bianca Lawson, what is your availability like? Are you like only available for like 6 episode half stories? Are you? uh, Dawson's Creek, Vampire Diaries, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Pretty Little Liars. Are all of those shows like, are you only available for a very short amount of time? Because you seem to have these you're great in all of those shows, Bianca, but it's either you or it's the network not wanting to commit to you as a series regular. But something's going on where you are so captivating and magnetic and super sexy for like 6 to 8 episode runs in shows, and then you're never fucking then you're gone. Then you leave. Like what's the fucking deal there? What's the big idea? Because you are Maya's one of my favorite characters on the show. I mean, I believe she is dead, which sucks, obviously, because I loved looking at her and I loved being around her, and I like her renegade, rebellious spirit to her, and I do like Emily and her together, like aesthetically they look incredible together. It's like the hottest couple on the face of the earth, and I feel like they brought out good things out of each other. And I wanted kind of Maya to bring out a more rebellious, kind of renegade aspect of Emily. I wanted Emily to become more counterculture, I guess, especially being the daughter of some fucking I don't know his rank, colonel. I don't know, some fucking army guy, National Guard guy. I don't know. Really just a patriarchal figure of authority. And I don't think that like her dad sucks or anything, but I think I'd like to see the contrast. I think I'd like to see Emily become a lot more rebellious, a lot more free-spirited. And I feel like Maya could have brought that out of her. I feel like Maya was a very liberating part of Emily, obviously, because she was the catalyst for Emily coming out of the closet, and then she was banished from the storyline to a fucking like juvenile work camp or something, which made her so paranoid in season 2 that she started using drugs again. Or it's just fucking pot for all I know. And even if it was more than that, I totally empathize with Maya's fucking struggles through this season. Like, dude, I don't fit into this weird, intricate narrative. And I feel like my girl's gonna rat me out. And I feel like people here just forget things way too easily. I would also be like Maya and be a complete fucking bitch to Emily's mom at that dinner they were trying that they were had to try to like settle old scores or like make everything right again. I would also be like, yeah, I just can't help but remember that time that you got me shipped away to a fucking work camp, all right, to a juvenile rehabilitation facility in the fucking woods. I, I've had friends who had to go to those places. I think even back then in like 2011 or whenever this season was on television, it was known those places are very abusive and brainwashing, so psychologically and physically tormenting. I am so with Maya. I wish that Maya was more of a wrecking ball here, and I wish that Emily kind of was more inspired by Maya's rebellious nature, and I think that that's kind of like a lost opportunity, unless, and it goes back to my original question to Bianca Lawson or the network, like A, the network did not commit to Bianca Lawson, or B, Bianca, why are you only available for like 6 to 8 episodes and then like you never want to come back to the show? Why do you do this to me, Bianca? You were so cool in Buffy. You were amazing on Dawson's Creek. I really wish we got more of you on Dawson's Creek. And you were outstanding on Pretty Little Liars. One of the shining stars of the first 2 seasons. I really hope she's not dead. I really hope it's a mistake, but the way the season ended, it seemed pretty damn final. It seemed for real, for real. I just don't want that to be the last time I see Bianca Lawson. I thought she was incredible. Like I said, I think she is a highlight of the first 2 seasons. And if she's gone, that's so much potential wasted, and just Maya is symbolic of lost opportunities of its own making, of the show's own making at this point. I fucking love you, Maya. I don't want you to be dead. You are worth mourning. Oh my God. Could have been a great character, and I feel like they were experimenting with those rebellious qualities of Maya that could, and those liberating qualities of Maya that could be great. I even love when she does her room up in the second season to make it look like it's underwater. It makes you remember the Jenna scene from early on in the season. where Jenna makes that cool fucking candle cover thing. I don't know crafts, bro. I don't fucking know. I had a girlfriend who was obsessed with it, and I blocked that all out of my memory. Kind of triggering PTSD. She was a crafty kind of fuck. But like the cover of a candle thing, and it turns around and it makes it look like it's underwater. And even Jenna says it's supposed to look like you are underwater, and that's what that room reminds me of. And that's where I think that the interesting part of season two is its delicate part of its design. It's kind of like intuitive part of its design. I feel like it is telling us through these scenarios, especially since it's Jenna and Maya who are kind of pulling us deeper underwater, right? Like I think that this season makes you want to feel like you are in the deep end, in the deep end of the narrative, in the deep end of secrecy, in the deep end of the teen drama art form, which I also think makes Emily a versatile kind of archetype because she is the swimmer. She is an incredible swimmer, and Emily being the primary target of the second season, and also Emily being the being identified as the weak link by A. I think that Emily truly is kind of the main character of season two in a large way, at least symbolically, at least metaphorically, because I feel that this is a season that is about swimming in the deep end of narrative and asking you, the audience member, to take the plunge, to kind of go with it, to dive into the deep end and not drown in it, but be kind of liberated in a way, feel kind of serene, because that's how we feel when we see the shadow play on the wall that makes you feel like you're in a pool. In both the Maya and Jenna scene is how you feel. I like that. I like that quite a lot. There's a lot of physical poetry to Emily's storyline this time around. The visual storytelling involved with Emily makes for some really cool grammar, filmic grammar to interact with. Hannah. Oof. Okay, so while they stepped up their game with Emily, Hannah became a lot more boring. I don't care about Kate. I don't care about her mom. I don't care about her dad getting remarried. I all of a sudden don't necessarily care about Hannah and Caleb. I like them together, but Hannah really didn't do anything interesting this season. Um, Not a thing. She really didn't do anything interesting this season. If anything, they kind of like they kind of forced the idea that Hannah actually is a very dumb blonde. She really doesn't add much here. All of the liars are necessary, so if I'm harshly criticizing one, it's mostly kind of the plotting and the story structure, and the storyline for Hannah was just uninvolving. And while I wouldn't say lazy, I would say full of misfires. Like I couldn't be compelled to care about anything she went through this season. Sorry. But she's still better than Arya. I still hate Arya. I still hate Arya. All of them are necessary characters, right? I like that there are four of them, and I like that when the four are together, it's extremely iconic and it's very moving and it feels powerful and legendary. That much is undeniable. But Arya, I hate her storyline. I hate the idea that she and Mr. Fitz are these romantic martyrs. I think that the relationship is entirely inappropriate, mostly because of the power dynamic, him being her teacher. I hate Mr. Fitz. I hate Arya. I hate the way that Arya treats her family. I hate the way that Arya treats her friends. I hate the way that Arya and Mr. Fitz are portrayed as these doomed, like tragic lovers. They liken them to Shakespeare in quite a few ways. I feel like that's stupid. I feel like Arya is stupid. I also feel like part of my problem might actually be the fact that Lucy Hale is not charismatic. Lucy Hale is not like a gravitational force on screen, and I'm never really drawn to her presence. If Arya had some sort of charisma to her, I probably wouldn't be here criticizing her so harshly. But Arya had no charisma whatsoever, and I think a large part of that is Lucy Hale, and the other part of that is the writing. It's just uninvolving. It's just not great. And I feel like the show has to know it. I feel like I, Marlene King, upon watching season one, is like, okay, so we messed up. The person who we assumed would be our central character, Arya, um, is actually the most boring one out of the four. In fact, she is the only boring one out of the four. So, like, what do we do? And I think they tried to do what they did with Spencer, and they're like, there must be interesting things with Arya. We just have to explore them further and more in a deeper way, and kind of give this show, Pretty Little Liars, a tender romantic core. But it does not work with Arya and Mr. Fitz. It does work with, Hannah and Caleb. I just I'm just kind of over it at this point. They have good chemistry, but it's not that amazing chemistry. Spencer and Toby have better chemistry than Hannah and Caleb, but there still actually hasn't been that couple that really blows my mind yet. There really hasn't been, and that is a flaw of Pretty Little Liars. It's what keeps it being a good show instead of a great one. You don't have a sort of immediate chemistry like a Lucas and Peyton or a Joey and Pacey. You don't have that immediate chemistry with anybody yet, and that's a major weakness, a huge handicap when we're kind of analyzing and engaging with teen drama because you need that. And I feel like the show is trying to force it, but it's very artificial. And I think the artifice is most um, unforgivable and unapologetic and arrogant when I'm being forced to interact with this Arya and Mr. Fitz Ezra bullshit. I hate them together. I hate them together. I hate the entire story of that, which is most of what Arya does. I don't like Arya. I still don't like Arya. If anything, I don't like her to an even greater degree than I did in the last video. I hate Arya. I have no use for her. She offers nothing to the analysis. Moving on to Jenna, fucking dream girl Jenna, dude. She is still this fucking crazy fucking stylish villain. I love her so much. She's great. She got some eye surgery this season and she can see, but she's not telling anybody. This chick makes me paranoid. I never trust anything that Jenna does, but I love watching her. I love being around her. I love being in the character's presence. She is a less is more character, and Pretty Little Liars capitalizes on it. I never feel like I'm seeing too much Jenna. I never feel like Jenna is being normalized. I always feel like there's something I should instinctively not trust about the girl, that there's something that is psychotic about her. And I love that. I love being around a dangerous character that excites me and stimulates me and keeps me wanting more. I love Jenna so much. She's still fucking perfect and perfect looking. She's incredible. I love Jenna. I can't wait to see to see where we go with Jenna. She is there are oftentimes she is the fuse. She is the thing that keeps this time bomb that is Pretty Little Liars in a forward momentum. She's the time bomb, just waiting to explode, and I can't wait. Uh, she time bombs, and I fucking love her. Jenna time bombs. I love her to death. Oh my God, give me more. Hey, or in my opinion, she's probably an A. She does say in the car with Spencer when she's freewheeling it or whatever, she's scaring Spencer half to death when she's revealed as A, that like you either die or you join the A team. The A team, which I would assume means there's more than one A, and she's also visited by someone in the final scene of the season, the kind of cliffhanger where she's like, I did everything you asked. So there's obviously another A, or she's not actually A, but I believe she is A. There is part of a team because it's impossible for one human being to be this omnipresent. I don't care about that Hitchcockian ending. The last episode was actually full blown Hitchcock, and like specifically it was Psycho, right? Because we got creepy Norman Bates motherfucker running this weird ass motel. We have our hot blonde taking a shower and kind of being stalked and preyed upon. And then to top it all off, we get like the ending of Psycho, which is a psychologist talking about Norman Bates's psychosis. We get that here as well. Like Dr. Sullivan is like she suffers from hyper reality. She is a fucking psychopath. And then we even get a voiceover, which is like mirrored in Psycho from a voiceover from Norman Bates, or Norman Bates's conception personality of his mother in his brain. It's the exact same thing from Psycho. Which I part of it is camp, but a large part of it is a name that I briefly mentioned in season one when I was describing Jenna, because Jenna doesn't seem like she's part of this show. She walks out of a different genre. This show loves to bend genres. And I said that she looks like a villain from a Dario Argento film, or she acts like a Brian De Palma villain in an 80s erotic thriller, or a Brian De Palma femme fatale, to be more precise. I think there's a lot of Brian De Palma here. I really do. And one of the things that Brian De Palma was known for, in case you don't know, is shamelessly ripping off Hitchcock. But I actually think doing Hitchcock better. Like, for instance, Body Double is a much better film than Vertigo. No question about that. No hesitation. I will throw Hitchcock under the bus for De Palma. And now I'm thinking that I, Marlene King, is from the Brian De Palma school of filmmaking because, like Raising Cain, or Dressed to Kill, or Blowout, I feel like that scene that is so heavily Hitchcock while Dr. Sullivan is kind of over explaining her prognosis, her psychological problems. Yes, there is camp there, but I feel like it's supposed to be taken seriously, but through the moody behaviors of a Brian De Palma film. So the show Pretty Little Liars is style first. A case where the style has so much substance to it that it overwhelms the actual writing of the show. I believe that this is probably one of the most aesthetically driven shows that we've covered. And so, what does that mean if we're applying Brian De Palma to a teen drama? What does it mean if we're applying the 80s erotic thriller or ripoffs of suspense to the teen drama? It means that we're entering the territory of B movie madness. It means that cinema logic trumps all of other forms of logic. It means that no one is safe, and it means that we are not only in the deep end of the pool, the deep end of teen drama, but we're in the deep end of narrative cinema. We are in the deep end of suspense filmmaking, and I don't think we have a life raft. I don't know how far the show can keep it up, right? Because it's a good season. The only irritating thing about season two is that it is really how consistent it is. I mean, it's delightful. It is a very addicting kind of television show to watch. I found myself really just fiending for another episode the second one ended, which is great, which is good. But consistently good. It is never very good. It is never great. Consistently good. This is a show that loves its red herrings. It's a show that loves Veronica Mars, but Rob Thomas handled mystery a lot better. But that's the thing. You don't watch a Hitchcock or a De Palma film and go, "Oh, the mystery was so incredible." You watch a Hitchcock or a De Palma film and you walk away from it feeling like horny, paranoid, and dirty. And I actually think that's what Pretty Little Liars is going for. It's a bit trashier about it, which is fine. It's still dignified entirely. Veronica Mars had a more literary approach to mystery. Veronica Mars had a more Angela Lansbury kind of feel to it. I feel like Rob Thomas's mysteries were very well plotted, and extremely detailed and fair. Right? Pretty Little Liars is an unfair show because it's devoted to hyper reality. It's unfair. Pretty Little Liars is very unfair with its mystery. And I feel like it breaks its own rules of narrative, which is fine because that's what De Palma and Hitchcock did. So what we're dealing with here isn't necessarily a mystery. It's a paranoia infused teen fantasy, a dark teen fantasy. So I think that the show is tricking its audience into framing it as a whodunit, but that's not really what it is. It's a show about punishment. It's a show about style, and it's probably a show about liberation because you do get those liberating, rebellious qualities from characters like Maya. And I do feel that the second season, the first season brought us into the swimming pool, and the second season is pushing us into the deep end of teen drama, the art form. And I'm here for it. I just I would be cautious if I were I Marlene King at this point because The waters that Pretty Little Liars is treading, uh, it's incredibly easy to drown in them, right? Seasons one and two are both good. They're both good seasons. Nothing more, and certainly nothing less. Good seasons of television. Can it be great? Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. And I want it to be great. I honestly do. But we'll see, won't we? Pretty Little Liars Season 3, the Your Cult Boyfriend analysis. I'd like to start this analysis by talking about the beauty of Pretty Little Liars first, before I I offer my criticisms, because trust me, I have a lot of criticisms, and I think I have a few harsh things to say about the show's third season. So I would really like to start this off by kind of explaining what I think the show's core philosophy is, what is so significant and beautiful about Pretty Little Liars. Because it's a show that touched a lot of different people. A lot of different people connected with the show. It's a massive show within the teen drama art form, within the teen drama canon. It's a huge show, and for good reason, too. This is what I think the show's philosophy is, the core of the show's poetic meanings actually are. And yes, I think at its core, it's a show of immense beauty and power. This is what Pretty Little Liars is saying philosophically, according to Your Cult Boyfriend. The lives of young people in the 2010s were directed by their dead friends. They lived in the movies of dead kids. That turns the teenage experience into hyper reality. The new teen experience feels like it's targeted and cryptic. Millennials and Gen Zers live inside the movies of their dead friends. Gen Zers and millennials have a uniquely twisted and morbid grasp on mortality. And I think they learn about death at a very early age. Gen Z kids, even more so than millennials, and they have more dead friends earlier and earlier and earlier in their lives. Gen Z and millennials feel as if they were targeted, and in a large way they were kind of cannon fodder for a larger kind of chess game, a very selfish and callous chess game that they weren't really asked if they felt like playing in the first place. They didn't consent to be driven to madness, to hyperviolence, or to death, to the extremities of the human experience at such an early age. And of course, when you are a teenager, that's where you really feel that spectrum. That's where you really feel the bipolarity, the extremes of emotions of the human condition. And it's only more exaggerated now. It's even more exaggerated now than it was when Pretty Little Liars was on television. But Pretty Little Liars is a show that is directed by a dead girl, essentially. Allison is the reason any of this is happening. She's directing everything. It's incorrect. It's actually improper to view Pretty Little Liars as a show about four living girls, when in actuality it's a show about one dead one. And that poetic meaning is magnified in season 3 when we focus on two dead girls. That's when this like the philosophy of the show, I think, makes itself most visible and accessible to an audience, because for the first half of the season we are dealing with who killed Maya, and Allison is always there as well. We have like two stories for the first season. And in the second part of the season, it just focuses on Allison. But when we are with both Maya and Allison, their ghosts, their remnants, their remains, their echoes, that's where you really get to interact with the idea that this is a show about two dead girls or a show about dead friends, and that our lives, especially the lives of young people in the 2010s and beyond, the lives of young people feel dictated by dead people. They feel kind of lifeless, or they always feel kind of unreal, which allows for the hyper reality of the show itself. Pretty Little Liars is a show that is about hyper reality. It's a show that bends genres. It's a show that goes to some very, very, very extreme places of narrative, of style, of composition, of emotion. The most extreme of the extremities. That's where Pretty Little Liars goes. I love Maya. Maya and Emily had the closest to what I would call like an electric kind of chemistry on the entire show. They had the closest to it. They didn't quite have it. They had the closest to it. That's one of the major weaknesses of Pretty Little Liars is that there is no Joey and Pacey, there is no Lucas and Peyton, there is no Chuck and Blair. There's no relationship on here that feels electric, that feels even remotely iconic. Ezra and Arya feel forced. Um, Caleb and Hannah just don't have it. Sorry, they just don't have it. The relationships here aren't working. Not in a way that you would want for a teen drama. You need that magic moment. Spencer and Toby come close, but this season convolutes that love story to a point where that kind of chemistry is unrecognizable now. I think that they almost had it, but they made it unrecognizable in the third season. And the influences are everywhere from Alfred Hitchcock to Brian De Palma to Dario Argento to Tchaikovsky with Odette Odile and Swan Lake. You get a lot of that. And it's pretty direct with its influences. Lolita. When a teen drama starts to directly reference and conjure up Lolita imagery, that's where you know shit's gonna get fucked up soon. Or that the that the moral compass of the show is just completely lost to nihilism. But I don't know, I wouldn't really call Pretty Little Liars nihilistic. I would call it a show about hyper reality. I mean, this is a show where even I mean, religion itself isn't ridiculed at all. It's just part of the grander hyper reality. See where everything is heightened, where everything is hyper reality. The problem with Pretty Little Liars season 3 is that eventually nothing matters at all. Eventually, you don't care. Eventually, the sensory overload from all the different genres, from all the different narrative beats and twists and turns and beautiful, pretty people doing effortlessly fucked up things, you just don't care eventually. You can't care. You can't be compelled to care. In my last Pretty Little Liars analysis video, I cautioned the show. I said, I'm excited by the waters that I'm Arlene King and the writers. I'm excited by where we're going in Pretty Little Liars. These waters excite me. But I warned it. I said, but these waters are remarkably easy to drown in. And in season 3, the show is drowning. And it's not a pretty death, and it's not a quick one either. It's floundering. Um, it's kind of grotesque. Spencer. Spencer Hastings, who would normally make me smile because I love her a lot. I think Troyan Belisario is the most talented of any of the actors in the entire piece. And I feel like she was used incorrectly to such an extent that I feel like too much was put on this character's shoulders in this season. I feel like they took their best character, their most interesting one, and their most conflicted one and their most entertaining one being Spencer Hastings. They took their best character and they just piled the weight of the goddamn world on her back, the weight of the entire narrative. They put her through too much, and I think they demanded way too much out of Troian Belisario, who could normally do anything. She's normally acting circles around everybody, everyone. And in this season, they were demanding way too much of her. When she got institutionalized, when she lost her fucking mind and had her Joker moment, I didn't care. This isn't to say that Troian Belisario didn't do a great job at expressing the disturbed psychosis of Spencer Hastings. She did. I didn't care because I knew that nothing mattered. Because it went too far with its Brian De Palma influence, with its Dario Argento ones, with its Tchaikovsky ones, and certainly with the Lolita ones, with its Hitchcockian references. It went too far, and I don't give a fuck. I don't care at all about the plot that happened because nothing mattered. The problem with flirting with hyper reality is that you get absorbed within the hyper reality. And reality itself doesn't matter. There is no value placed on reality itself when your show is about hyper reality. Now, is that poetic? Yes, of course. The lives of young people, they can't value reality itself because hyper reality is the one that is all consuming and the one that they are drowning within. But I am doing 80% of the poetic work there with that reading, and the show is doing 20, and I don't feel like helping out the show that much. I'm not going to be the show's um lifeboat. I'm not going to do that for the show. I don't feel like it. I feel like it's a show where nothing ever matters. Kind of gamifies tragedy, gamifies loss, which is also fine. We have to remember, it doesn't really matter what I think. When I'm covering these teen dramas, it's most interesting to cover them based on how they spoke to culture and how culture spoke back to it. Right? So I just said it gamifies trauma and tragedy and grief. It gamifies it. It applies trauma to an entirely superficial and bubblegum narrative. Now, why is that poetic and meaningful? Look me in the eye and tell me that the lives of young people haven't been gamified. The trauma that young people experience has not been codified within this kind of Coca-Cola fucking nightmare of hyper reality. Because it has, because they have, because their lives have been that. They live in a world where there's a new fucking mass shooting every single fucking week, okay? And more kids are having more and more dead friends. And it's being gamified, it's being politicized, it's being commodified. And Pretty Little Liars, I think, is commenting on this fact. Now, Pretty Little Liars is doing so in a way that can border on satire, which can border on tastelessness, but that's also the way that young people interact with media itself as something that is so removed from them because it doesn't care. Because it doesn't care. And Pretty Little Liars isn't wrong, but there's just something so deeply humiliating about this aspect of the show. Uh, the hyper reality of it all is very difficult to sift through for meaning. And once again, if that's not the human experience, the teenage experience, as we know it today, then I don't know what is or what is more apt. Emily's awesome. I love that we see Maya. I love that Bianca Lawson, the sexiest girl in the fucking world, who played a 17-year-old for over 17 years, by the way, what a goddess, came back for a few special appearances in quite the same way I'm appearing to you now, saying that like her video is cursed, her website's cursed. She's awesome. She's so fucking cool and just immediately likable. I do not know why the show didn't just sign Bianca up as a series regular. She's perfect. She's perfect. I wish we could have used her to communicate more rebellious ideas, more anti-conformist ideas. Because the closest the show ever came to being anti-conformist was through her character, who I think was prematurely killed off the show. But we find out who killed Maya. And while I think it is interesting that Maya, another dead girl, is directing the narrative, directing the lives of our liars, of our heroes of the show, I don't care about Nate or LJ, whatever his fucking name is. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care about the mystery part. Like, it's so hard to analyze this because I don't care about the plot. And I'm not convinced the show cares about the plot either. It seems to, in a way that could be considered postmodern, it likes to play with the mechanics of plot and doesn't necessarily care about the plot itself. It doesn't really care about what the plot is actually revealing. It's not about like the revelations of suspense. That's not what it's interested in. What it's interested in are the mechanics, are the colors, is the design of the narrative itself, the design of mystery, and it loves to play with all of these MacGuffins, all of these like tried and true methods of thriller filmmaking. It plays with every trope conceivable. And I don't think for a grander purpose, only because it just likes to play with the mechanism of narrative storytelling, but specifically of thriller storytelling, of like De Palma, Argento, and Hitchcock. It loves to play with these screen languages. It loves to get lost and swim in the deep end of screen grammar. And I mean, a part of it could be extended to a larger reading of the lives of teenagers just seems so overly complicated, and it seems to be full of booby traps, seems to be full of like menace. It seems to be full of dread, and it seems to just be so convoluted that the mechanisms of their own lives, the narratives of their actual realities, are just so ambiguous and labyrinthine and unending and wrought, overwrought, I should say, that that once again nothing matters. It doesn't even matter if you get to the end of the maze because the maze itself didn't matter, which isn't to say the journey itself mattered because the journey itself didn't matter. It must just be the experiential quality, but that experiential quality once again is stuck inside hyper reality, which does not matter. The show is a deeply humiliating show. I don't know what else to say about that. Pretty Little Liars has tethered itself so intimately to hyper reality that it cannot break that umbilical. It can't. It tethered itself too deeply to it. The waters in which I said the show was soon to drown in or could drown in, the show has done exactly that. It's missing an essential layer of genius. I'm Arlene King. You went too far in season three. You've gone to a point where my brain is broken and nothing matters. Hannah, who cares about anything she did? Who cares about Wilden? Who cares about Caleb's family? Who cares about anything? Who even cares about Mona, man? I don't even think that Mona is pulling this off well. I like her. She's like this tall and crazy as fuck. I think she's cool, but like Spencer, I feel like they put too much on her, and she can't handle it. Not, the actress does fine. The actress does she's serviceable. She's totally fine with the role. It's just they're putting too much on this character. Like they were putting too much on Spencer's character that she can't hold up her part of the narrative. And it's not the actress's problem, it's the writers, it's the structure. It's the structure thinking that this part of your narrative, which is a very important part, was actually strong enough. Mona cannot handle this. Mona cannot handle this much pressure. Neither could Spencer. And those are very important parts of the foundation, or at least part of the architecture of your story that just cannot handle everything that you're laying on top of it. Mona would have been better in a less is more category, which would lead me to the only thing that still works is Jenna, my beautiful eternal crush Jenna. She's still doing great. Thank God. She's a less is more character. They never try to put too much on Jenna's back because they know, and they knew this from the first fucking episode. They know that the character cannot handle too much, or else the mystery is gone, the enigma has disappeared, the eroticism has evaporated, the interest has depleted. If they do that, and Jenna, they never did that with Jenna. Therefore, she is still erotic, she is still interesting, she is still morbid, she is still mysterious, and she is still perfect and truly cinematic. Even in this season is the one where she gains her eyesight back. But I believe she was telling Shauna in the final episode that she has good days and dark days, but soon they will all be dark days. I think that this eye surgery is like temporary. I think she's going to go blind again, which makes her more cinematic because classic Jenna is always Jenna with the sunglasses. I love Jenna. Jenna is the only thing that still works in this season because Jenna always existed in hyper reality. When we were in scenes with Jenna in season 1, we were entering into a different kind of mood, a different vibe, a different philosophy. We're entering into hyper reality. She was like a villain in a giallo film. We entered into hyper reality with her. The thing that made that work so well in the first 2 seasons is that everyone else wasn't really in hyper reality yet. They were flirting with it, but people were more grounded. When we hung out with Jenna in the first 2 seasons, especially in the first season, she was crazy. She was bonkers. The whole fucking mood of the piece, the atmosphere changed. Like tangibly, it fucking changed because she existed in hyper reality. She works in the 3rd season because everyone else caught up with how bonkers she always was. Like every other character caught up to the hyper reality that Jenna was always within, which is bad for everyone else but fine for Jenna. Jenna still works. Thank God. There is still a God. Oh my God, thank you. Because Jenna is still fine. Jenna still works. This character is still perfect. It's still a wonderfully designed character. I think that Jenna is the best thing that that Pretty Little Liars did. The greatest contribution to the teen drama from Pretty Little Liars is Jenna. You guys fucking did so well with her. Bravo, bravo, bravo. I could never say a bad word about how Jenna was designed, portrayed, and captured. It was so good. So fucking good. So fucking good. It's God fuck it. It's genius. The only genius part of Pretty Little Liars is Jenna. And it's enormous. It's enormously brilliant. And thank God for that, okay? Because Arya, the 4th liar, I still hate. Nothing new there. I don't like anything she ever does. They tried to make Fitz a little bit more interesting to show that he comes from an exorbitant place of wealth. But I can't care. I don't care. I don't care about almost anything that happened this season. I don't. Uh, The 3rd season of Pretty Little Liars broke my brain. Here's the thing, it's an extremely important teen show. I feel like Pretty Little Liars and Glee being on at the same time makes sense because if you combine those 2 shows together, you get to the Riverdale and Euphoria era that we're at today. You get to that era. To a place where hyper reality is just all encompassing, where atmosphere and aesthetic is the new watchword. I found this season kind of disturbing because all of these incredibly intense and traumatic things were happening to characters who I have spent a lot of time with by now, and I couldn't care less. I didn't care. I didn't care about these characters being in peril. I didn't care about any of it. The season ended on a cliffhanger. Something or someone's in the back of Wilden's police car that was mysteriously pulled out of the lake that Hannah and Arya pushed it into after Hannah's mother ran over Wilden. Do you see how many steps I had to take back to explain the fucking car? That is so convoluted and overcomplicated. That's everything on this show, and I just can't care. Once something gets to a few levels of complexity that seem needless, I can't care. And that's something that I, Marlene King, has to know. You can only do a couple separations until you don't care anymore. And I don't care. I don't care what's in the back of the trunk. I don't care if Allison was the girl in red, was red coat or whatever the fuck. I don't care if that was Allie. Because I don't care if she's alive or dead, because philosophically, she's never been dead to begin with, because this is a show that is about a dead girl. It's about Allison anyway, so she's never been dead. She's always been the most alive and represented character in the entire show. So if she is alive, that's just a hyper literal metaphor. And it's a needless one at that, because the first 3 seasons made it incredibly fucking clear that the show is about Allie, and that Allie, even if she is dead, is still very, very, very much so alive within the narrative. That she's the director of the entire narrative. So if she actually is alive, I'm just going to call that lazy, because that's always kind of been the case. And it's more poetic if she remains dead. Dead girls are more living than alive ones are. Dead girls are more alive than living ones. That's a lot more poetic and tragic. But once again, I don't care. When I interact with teen dramas, I like to do it in a very like authentic way. I like to do it in a very intelligent way. So I think that my reactions, while they may seem a bit animated, uh, maybe even aggressive, I feel that that is both honest and intelligent. Because I'm well trained in teen drama. It's my favorite thing on the planet. Season 3 broke my brain. It's not a normal teen drama, but it is one of the most popular teen dramas ever made, you know. And we're not even halfway done. It is very significant. I'm having all these difficulties with it, and I find that kind of fascinating. And I think I'm supposed to have all of these difficulties with it. I think this show is one of the most disturbing shows I've ever seen, because I feel this so detached and disassociated and disenchanted by the entire piece. And the scary thing is, I think that Gen Z feel that way all the time. And as a millennial, that's a bitter pill to swallow. I think that the Gen Z teenage experience. I mean, I think Pretty Little Liars is a show made for both millennials and Gen Z. It's kind of on the cusp there of accessibility. I think I think the teen experience got a lot darker when the 2010s hit, and I think it's only got more dark since. The hyper reality, I think, is all consuming. I'll see you for season 4. Um, Hopefully I put my brain back together. But Pretty Little Liars already broke it. It already took my brain and fucking impaled it, stabbed it inside of Mona's locker. And just like Mona wasn't affected by the brain in her locker, this show isn't concerned about my brain breaking at all. And that's scary too. Pretty Little Liars is actually a scary show, because it's scary how much I don't care about who's alive and who's dead, because the show has made it quite clear that dead girls have more fun and they have more to live for. Dead girls. It's about dead girls. talking about the fourth season of Pretty Little Liars. Mm, Well, oh, this is good coffee. Well, this season didn't break my brain like the third season did. The third season went too far into its own style and hyper reality that I didn't really care about anything that happened, you know? Season four did not break my brain. Marlene King was able to pull in the reins slightly, which does not mean that season four is any less insane. It's just, um, it's just more coherent. Even though the season starts with a goddamn talking parrot providing vital information to the liars to solve a mystery, like a fucking talking parrot reciting a phone number. What? What? Guys, I am only flesh and blood and bone. I can be ripped apart, mashed to a pulp here. But somehow my brain didn't break. Who knows why? Who knows why or how that is? But my brain did not break this season. It was more coherent. Season three was just pure fucking chaos. Spencer is still the character who's tasked with the most heavy lifting out of the four main liars. She's still the one who has to do the most, which is fine because Troyan Bellisario, the actress who portrays Spencer Hastings, is the one who could pull off the most. She's the most gifted performer on the whole show. Been saying this since the first season. She acts circles around everyone, so she can normally handle a lot to do. But unlike season three, they didn't give her too much to do. I think they gave her just enough. Most of the time, most of the important time with Spencer is kind of about the deterioration of her and Toby's relationship due to Spencer's kind of obsession, kind of hyper compulsions, uh, trying to figure out what's going on with this primary mystery. Season four is the season where we find out that Allie is still alive, although I thought that we got that confirmation in season three at the end, basically. I guess it wasn't confirmed. This season mostly didn't do a whole lot, but confirm the fact that Allie, yes, is actually alive. She's not some sort of uh, delusion or hallucination, some sort of shared hallucination. She's not that. She's actually alive. A large part of me feels that Spencer conveniently gets like a pretty bad amphetamine problem. She becomes a speed freak pretty conveniently because now we're like, oh, she doesn't remember anything. Oh man, maybe she killed somebody. Whatever. It was nice seeing Troyan Bellisario kind of act the role of a paranoid and obsessive kind of junkie. She pulled it off really well, and it did go to some cool places because Pretty Little Liars is really interested in the mechanics of mystery, the frameworks, the beats and tropes of mystery storytelling. It's really interested in the mechanics of it and all of the contraptions of suspense filmmaking. And it went to some cool places where like Spencer would be basically right or on the right track at the very least, but she would be disbelieved because of her junky behavior. And that's fun. That's always fun. It's always fun when you get some sort of seemingly aggravating kind of stick in the road, but it actually serves a narrative purpose because I liked seeing Spencer kind of challenged here in quite a few different ways. Her intellect was challenged, her leadership capabilities, her friendship, her sanity was challenged. So Spencer really wasn't too bad this season. And as a recovering coke addict myself, I really appreciated and vibe with the concept that the junkie is absolutely the smartest person in the room and the only one who is on the right track. The only one who could actually solve this thing is a junkie, which inherently makes the junkie or your most promising hero so entirely unreliable. And that's fun. That's a fun way to play with the mechanics of mystery storytelling for sure. Let's talk about the elephant in the room because I kind of threw a little fit. Mr. Fitz over here. That's what you can call me because I throw a lot of fits about this show. I'm sorry for that joke, but whatever. I don't like that Allie's alive. It doesn't add anything new to the poetics because the most haunting thing about Pretty Little Liars is that it's a show about dead girls that we live, or not we, the youth live in the films of their dead friends. They live in the movies dedicated to dead people. Their lives are directed and dictated and plotted by dead kids, and more young people have more and more dead friends as reality becomes paper reality. I think that that's what Pretty Little Liars is ultimately about, especially in season three. It made this come into like autofocus. It autofocused on this concept and made it very visible and accessible to the audience to interact with the concept that we are in the films of our dead friends. That Pretty Little Liars isn't actually a show about four living girls, it's a show about one dead one. The idea that Allie had more of a presence and was more represented within the narrative than any of the living characters, I thought was a lot more interesting than Allie being secretly alive. And in season three, you also had Maya's death, and yet Maya had this constant presence and overrepresentation within the narrative that I found really poetic, especially if this is a show about dead girls, not about living ones. So the fact that Allie is now alive just takes a metaphor that I thought was kind of eloquent and makes it just hyper literal, which kind of aggravates any symbolic meanings, any higher symbolic meanings that that the original metaphor could have had and expressed. I hate that Allie's still alive because she was always basically alive. She was always more alive than anyone else in the show, and what made it so poetic and morbidly ironic was the fact that Allie was considered dead, or that Allie was dead. The fact that this dead girl has more of a presence and has more of a life than any of our living heroes, I thought was a lot more poetic and a lot more affecting, like emotionally, thematically, politically, stylistically. I thought it was a lot more interesting when she was dead. Now that she's alive, nothing has changed, right? Like we know that Allie's alive, yet they're still being threatened by A and all this like bullshit. It's still the exact same shit that's happening, so it doesn't matter if Allie is alive or not. The poetics and the mechanics have not changed. So the idea of Allie being alive to me is a waste of a really good poetic statement about the lives of young people in the 2010s and how the lives of young people are dominated by their dead friends, and that Pretty Little Liars is a show about and for dead girls. And I feel that Allie being alive is a waste of a perfectly crafted metaphor that I think could have been. I feel like there was more room to excavate and explore here. I did notice that the final episode did a lot of fucking heavy lifting there from I. Marlene King, who wrote that one. She had to desperately, acrobatically, athletically try to make sense of every other episode in the entire show by making it but making it cohere. Final episode A is for Answers of season four is about connecting the dots, making it make sense. The idea that Allie could still be alive. What exactly happened to her on the night she disappeared with what, Mr. Fitz, with Ian, with Melissa, with Spencer, with Toby and Jenna, with all sorts of people. And it was about making it coherent. It was about making it feel just, oh wow, a revelation. I'm totally completely understanding. But as I covered before, I don't think Pretty Little Liars is a show that's interested in coherency. It's not really a show that's interested in revelations and revealing grand truths. It's hyper focused and it's obsessed with playing with the mechanics of mystery storytelling. So that's where I. Marlene King gets to do a lot of heavy lifting by connecting these dots. And I believe that she does connect them in mostly fair ways, but there are so many unfair things that are done structurally to make it cohere, to make it make sense, which is fine because mysteries are one of the most unfair genres within an art form, a cinematic art form that is intrinsically unfair to begin with. Everything that's filmed is a lie, and a lie is always more interesting than the truth. Ali was right. I. Marlene King is right. It's just entirely unfair sometimes. And like I said, most of the time, I think that I, Marlene King, is following her own rule book, and then at other times she's completely betraying the languages established. But once again, that's okay given the stylistic raison d'etre of Pretty Little Liars in the first place. Well, like, what am I supposed to think now? Like, what am I supposed to think? Allie, in this entire time, was this mean girl specter, this firecracker, who I came, like, over time, like, learned to appreciate how mean and how unforgiving she was as this little girl. Now we're like, oh no, there's all this complexity here, and she was truly being victimized by so many people, and she has such a heart of gold. And I'm like, we don't actually need to sanitize Allie. That's what I felt like it was. It was sanitizing Allie. It was like, oh no, that this girl who you thought was totally mean and kind of a bully is actually being hounded and hunted and pursued and targeted, which does speak to the poetic kind of layerings of the show itself. But what it does is sanitize Allie. Like, I came to a point where, like, I don't necessarily care if Allie was the worst human being in the world. I don't care if you mourn for Allie, but Allie deserves justice. The worst people on the planet deserve justice. And maybe Allie was so terrible and awful to people because of the way the world just is. The world as it stands, the one presented in Pretty Little Liars, for sure, certainly, is enough to make any angel turn demon. And I wish that the final episode of this season didn't go out of its way to sanitize Allie, because I thought Allie was a firecracker, and now I just think she's this damsel in distress who could hardly fend for herself. I know this show is based on a popular series of books, and I know that the show is following certain beats from the books. So my criticism could be extended to the books themselves as well. I think that Allie actually being alive is a disservice to the metaphorical architecture of the first three seasons or of the earlier books. Like that. That's the biggest criticism I got, is that this show kind of cut off its own legs, its own poetic ones, and now it is just this big nothing, honestly. Emily doesn't really, there's not much to go into with Emily. I still think Emily's awesome. I still think she's super cool and capable and pretty. Lindsay Shaw, can she just leave the show? Mose from Ned's Declassified? There's no chemistry there. There was with Maya, right? There was with Bianca Lawson. There's no, zero, negative chemistry between Lindsay Shaw and Shay Mitchell. But Shay Mitchell did great this season. Her character, there's not much for me to explore with it though. Um, One of those cases. There's always a liar who gets kind of left out of the analytical loop, and this time I can't really engage with much of what Emily did. Hannah might be the most engaging I've seen Hannah since the first season. Um, oh God, this season can be really annoying because there are so many episodes that take place in a town called Ravenswood, which is like this weird supernatural fucking haunted mansion of a town. Like, it's weird. It's weird, and I get angry when I think about how all those Ravenswood episodes were about providing a backdoor pilot within Pretty Little Liars for the first spin-off of Pretty Little Liars called Ravenswood, and like the contrived way that Caleb leaves Pretty Little Liars entirely, leaves Rosewood for Ravenswood. He's leaving it so he can go be on a failed show called Ravenswood that lasted 10 episodes and then got canceled. If there are any fans of Ravenswood, I'm not criticizing you. My heart goes out to all fans of every show that was ever canceled way prematurely. And it definitely sounds like Ravenswood was. I think a supernatural teen drama within the world of Pretty Little Liars might be kind of interesting. It might have been kind of cool. I'm never going to watch it, though. Doesn't really interest me. But if you were a fan, my heart goes out to you. But there, it was so contrived and it was so annoying, um, and pointless for me as a Pretty Little Liars viewer. Like, it's hard to reconcile the fact that all those Ravenswood episodes were basically fucking pointless. It was just so we can kick off a spin-off. And Caleb leaving the show, fuck off, man. I hate this new bald guy. Is his name Travis or something that Hannah's with? Hannah is more engaging this season because she seems to be a bit more independent and kind of reckless. Her mother is going through a lot of legal troubles this season, and Hannah. Maybe it just comes down to Ashley Benson's portrayal of the character, but she was a lot more captivating in season 4 than she had been in the previous seasons. I think she was funnier, and I think that she was more emotionally available for an audience member to interact with on a lot of different levels. Um, I actually like there are good things with Caleb going away because I was kind of over Hannah and Caleb for a long while. And now I can see that Caleb kind of maybe they both limited each other's characters. Hannah was kind of being limited by Caleb's constant presence. And it's interesting seeing Hannah be kind of alone and kind of wanting and kind of trying to figure herself out all over again romantically. So that was kind of cool. I can't wait to say these words. I liked some of what Arya and Ezra did. For the first time ever, I liked some of the Arya and Ezra stuff. All you had to do, show, was break them up. And I'm like, oh, these are okay characters. I hate them together so much. I hate them together so much. And then when they broke them up and Arya is this kind of like real fucking aggro bitch. I loved her. I was like, okay, okay, she's really mad at everyone now. This is fun. This is fun. Everyone's a target for Arya. This is great. Her destroying fucking Ezra's apartment. This is after Arya finds out that Ezra is not who he said he was. He's actually like he's writing a true crime novel, and everything has been like going deep undercover, apparently deep inside of Arya too. It is so kind of fucked up, right? Because like I always saw the opening scene of the show, or like one of the first time we meet Ezra in the entire show at the bar, as predatory to begin with, because it is an older man preying on like a 15 or 16-year-old girl. And I always saw that as predatory to begin with, but now it's predatory times two, predatory times 1,000, because now the show posits that Ezra already knew who Arya was, already knew that she was underage, and pursued her intimately anyway, or deliberately, so that he could figure out more about Allie, who he was also in a relationship with. Like Ezra just does this. Ezra just literally is a pedo. Like Ezra is just kind of a pervert, man. I loved Ian Harding is the actor's name, I believe, who plays Ezra. Great performance this season, bro. You were so good. I like when we actually thought he was A. When the show was trying to get you to think that he was A, and I really kind of wanted him to be A because he was so vicious and cinematic. Ian Harding nailed every part where he's supposed to be kind of mysterious and dubious and untrustworthy and villainous. He nailed every part. I loved seeing Ezra in these new dimensions. I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, this is a villain that intimidates me. Ezra's a psychopath. I loved that shit. I'm kind of let down that he was just a true crime novelist. But it's whatever. It's fine. I had so many good times with Ezra Fitz this season, and I'm shocked because I've hated Ezra. I've hated Arya since the show started, and now he's vilified. And now Arya is kind of free to be that unstoppable rebel, like she was always like the costume design, her fashion it was always confusing to me because she would dress in a kind of a punk rock debutante sort of way. The flashbacks, she'd have these pink highlights, or like even present day, it's kind of like these like leopard print. It's kind of punk rock, and it's like a sexy wardrobe. But it always didn't make sense to me because she was what? This girl who likes to fancy herself a punk rocker who can't stop trying to fuck every single authority figure that comes into her life. That's just deeply stupid. But now I'm actually seeing the rebel, like the rejected angry girl that is in there. And I want to explore that more. Her finding out about Fitz and losing her fucking marbles, that's great. That's the best thing I've ever seen Arya do on this show. And Lucy Hale, nailed it. You nailed it. Good fucking job this season. Great performance. And Ian Harding as Ezra, motherfucker, dude, you were so good. You were so good. It was so much fun seeing you be intimidating because I was also intimidated by Evil Ezra. It was so fucking dope, man. Evil Ezra. It's the funnest thing about season 4. I never thought I'd leave a season of Pretty Little Liars going, you know what? Ezra was my favorite part, but he really was. Even when he gets shot in the very last episode here, obviously he's going to be on a redemption arc, and I'll be back with season 5 most likely to say that I hate Ezra again. But, it was great while it lasted. But even when he gets shot and he's looking over like the skyline of Manhattan, I think is where they are, and he goes, "It's so beautiful." Like, even that, like, there's so many, there are complexities now to Ian Harding's, characterization of Ezra Fitz, and I'm just loving every bit of them. Uh, every component of the character for season 4, I thought was just damn good entertainment and really cool. And it finally, I think interacts with my previous criticisms of Ezra Fitz as a predator. He's not a romantic martyr. Please treat him accordingly. And season 4 did, and kind of gave him this brand new pure evil autonomy, at least for a few episodes where we didn't really know his ambitions or motivations or true identity or purpose within this tale now. He became such a great villain. Such a great villain. But speaking of great villains, criticism time, guys. Jenna is my favorite character in the entire show. I think that Jenna is the greatest contribution that Pretty Little Liars made uh, to the teen drama art form. It's the most genius, the only genius thing that Pretty Little Liars has ever accomplished is Jenna. And I always called her a less is more character. So this season did good with the less, but it gave up with the more. Did she leave? Did the actress leave the show or something? Because you usually don't get a whole lot of Jenna, but you do get Jenna. She was in like a mere handful of episodes. I think the last time we see her in season 4, she's bludgeoned, beaten over the back of her head, and thrown into a lake and almost dies and drowns, dies and drowns. Of course, if you drown, you die. If you die, you drown. But I don't care. I don't care. I'm getting flustered here because not enough Jenna. And not enough Jenna means that this season, even though I thought that like people like Ezra and Spencer and Arya even were like pretty interesting, the fact that there is not nearly enough Jenna. There's almost no Jenna. And the fact that Allie's still alive, which I believe completely conflicts, contradicts, and compromises an integral, poetic, symbolic component of the show, a characteristic of the show that I kind of appreciated. Uh, this season still is not as good as the first two, which means it's more bad than it is good overall. It's better than season 3 because my brain isn't broken. My brain is completely functional still. But I really let down by the decisions that the show made, even though I am impressed by how the show made them. Because that's what I feel about Pretty Little Liars, is that it's a show that's really interested in mechanics and trappings of genre filmmaking. And like, while I'm impressed with the contraptions and the mechanics and the trappings, I don't care about the poetics anymore because I feel that the show is rapidly losing its grasp of any poetics that the show once held true. So the show is quickly becoming a show about nothing. And that's kind of tragic in a large way. We're only halfway through. So this is what happens when you're halfway through a show. Either the best days are over or a surprise resurgence in quality is yet to come. Something tells me that the best days are over and that Pretty Little Liars will never amount to any sort of thing remotely resembling mastery. I think that the best we'll get from the season is good. The first 2 seasons are good. The third season is brain breaking, hyper reality. The fourth season is not very good, but pretty entertaining. Not very interesting to analyze, interpret, discuss, or deconstruct. The most genius thing the show ever did was provide us with Jenna, a new archetype for the ages, a new archetype that was totally radical and to me revolutionary and extremely poetic and hyper cinematic that we did not get enough of in season 4. So season 4, nothing, I can't put it on the same level as season 3. I think season 4 is better than 3 because season 3 completely broke my brain and was not a pleasant viewing experience. So, but it's still not good. Still not good. But Ezra fucking fits, dude, and Arya Montgomery, they were both really good here. Somehow, for some reason. Mona is always fun to watch. I should mention Mona regularly now in these analysis videos. Mona is really fun. I love her dynamics with Fitz, really. Seeing Fitz kind of intimidate her so much and seeing that Mona truly informed Allison's new life as we find out in the final episode. That was the coolest thing about the final episode is finding out that Mona was honestly the architect behind uh Allison's second coming, second life, honestly. So Mona is still really cool. I still love Mona. She's pretty great. So I would like to see more Mona. I like to get a bit more introspective and contemplative and cinematic with Mona because I think that there's a lot of potential with her. So I'd like to see more of her. I'd like to see more of Jenna, please. You fucking assholes. I want to see more of Jenna. You guys are jerks. Toby can leave the show. Toby can stay in London at this point. I don't want to see Toby. I'm done with Toby. I could see more Melissa, mostly because Tori DeVito is super sexy. But that's enough for me to want to see more of another character. I want to see more of Melissa because she's hot and the most unreliable character consistently since season one. Like, no scene with her matters because she is psychotic. Nothing matters whenever she speaks. It's never true, or if it's true, then it doesn't matter and it's misinformed. So fuck it. Tori DeVito is a fucking stunner, though. So bring her back. Noel, Noel, man. I remember in season one, I'm like, I hope I get more Noel. That guy was captivating. He still is. And he's pretty damn important, it turns out, to the specifics of the narrative. He's pretty damn important. I like Noel. I want to see more Noel. I'll save my analysis of Noel for a future season because you're given crumbs of Noel. There's not much to go into. It's just crumbs, but I feel like there's a banquet of Noel just waiting for me in the future, and I'll wait to analyze him. Until then, just know that am still thrilled every time he shows his face. And he showed his face in a pretty massive way in season four as a dude who knew that Allie was not dead at all and was actually like safeguarding her, was actually protecting her in a very large way. I think he just was protecting her. That's pretty great. And they did a like one cryptic line of why does Noel know about your secrets or something similar to that, something akin to that. And Allie says, Noel has plenty of secrets of his own, and I would like to find out what those are before I provide you with my analysis of his character, because I think he's a wild little wrecking ball. That dude's cool. But we've come to the end of season four. This is the end of my video. It didn't really provide us with a whole lot of substance, to be honest, to speak about. In season three, I did get to talk about hyperreality. I did get to talk about being in the movies of dead kids. Like I did get to talk about that. Season four, the only poetic or metaphorical, symbolic or philosophical work that it did was against itself, was against its own narrative. So we didn't really talk about what new themes mean or represent. We had to talk about how now the show is quickly becoming a show that has no philosophy and no psychology, and that's worrisome for me because I'm in this for the long haul. And Pretty Little Liars, I think, had a lot of potential in the first two seasons to really say some phenomenal and massive things about the teenage experience. But I'm not sure if I hold those aspirations for the show anymore. But I still had fun with season four. It is still entertaining. And I'll be back to talk about season five. Thank you for watching. Whatever. Pretty Little Liars season 5 is bizarre, very bizarre. Um, we immediately wrap up the cliffhanger from season 5, which involves a lot of hyper real nonsense where Arya ends up killing Shauna, who is revealed to be A, an A, some A. I don't know, beta A. I have no fucking clue. I don't know. This show's about hyper reality, so nothing really, really, really matters. I still find it pretty damn enjoyable. There are a lot of cool stylistic things this season. I think I, Marlene King, the showrunner, really has found her stride when it comes to the genre bending and the stylistic contextual interplay of the show's themes and vibes. I think three moments stand out to me the most. The first of which is my dream girl, my Pretty Little Liars dream girl, who is, I guess I have two. I have two crushes on Pretty Little Liars. I have Jenna, but we're not going to talk about Jenna right now. Um, but the other one is Melissa, played by Tori DeVito, aka Psycho Carrie from One Tree Hill. I just think she's so fine. She has a really cool episode this season where she's kind of revealing to Spencer her truth, which is not a truth. It's a version of a truth. It's a truth for her. She's revealing her truth where she believes that she is covering up for her sister, kind of thing. But stylistically, it does some really cool things where the setup is that Melissa is kind of filming herself speaking to a camera, and when Spencer's watching the video, she is like kind of stylistically transported to behind the camera, almost as a director, almost as a camera operator, which kind of speaks to the themes of the shows where um, the lives of teenage girls in the 2010s are ones that are on display, are ones that are directed, are ones that are cinematic. And I think that stylistically, I'm Arlene King, the showrunner, and the writer's room, and of course, the actors and the set designers. Everyone was able to really express that beautifully in that episode, which is really cool considering that the fact that Alison De Laurentiis is alive is something that I feel negatively impacts the philosophy of the show, but that doesn't mean the philosophy is entirely wasted. Another stylistic moment that I really liked was probably the one of the biggest moments of the season, where Mona has her, quote unquote death scene. And it's set up beautifully. It's set up like as if it's straight out of an Argento film. I think I'm Arlene King through characters like Jenna and certain kind of tropes that she's fixated over. She has been flirting with Giallo, with Dario Argento, for a very long time, with Brian De Palma, with kind of erotic thrillers for a very long time, and with the kind of death, quote unquote, Mona's death scene that comes around the middle of season 5. Oh my God, it pays off. It's so well done because not only do you get shades of deep red, it's mostly deep red. It's mostly Dario Argento's deep red there, and it's done so well. But you also get kind of hints of Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson. There is a bit of Scream there. There is a bit of the slasher quality there, but it's mostly deep red, and I feel like that speaks volumes as well to the show's more artistic ambitions. And the other time where I think it was stylistically quite brilliant is in the final episode with the dollhouse, the reveal of the dollhouse that A has been keeping Mona alive as Alison De Laurentiis, pretending to be Alison De Laurentiis in this dollhouse that A, or Charles, as we've come to the very end of the episode or season, kind of decided almost kind of haphazardly that that's his name based on some blocks, that his name is Charles. Charles has been as the dollhouse under surveillance, and he's the operator, the puppeteer. He sets out these loud sirens. He directs the days, gives them activities to do, and all the other liars end up there as well. And it really speaks to the show's the themes that are still intact. Because yes, we lost a great amount of depth, of philosophical depth,
when Alison De Laurentiis was revealed as being alive, because I think the cornerstone, the philosophical cornerstone of the show, the foundation of it all, is that our lives are directed by, or that the lives of young people are directed by their dead friends. They live in the movies of their dead friends, and that's immortality, baby. And it kind of played with that theme here when we thought that Mona was dead, but she was actually alive, which kind of brings the notion of like possibly and it's not like a really fun notion. But the fact that Alison De Laurentiis is truly alive, and then she's brought back to be punished, systemically punished, because she's found guilty for the murder of Mona. She was framed for it. She's punished by the law, by the state, by her friends, by her high school, by her family. She's punished by everybody. And the punishment is befitting the crime of being a cute, manipulative girl who's actually alive and not dead, like everyone thought. So that's kind of interesting. I'd prefer it if she was dead, because there's really no difference between her being alive and her being dead because she's a very cool character, but she still operates in the exact same way. She was still very much an ever-present character in the first four seasons where you were led to think that she was dead. But there are still some there's still a substance here. There's still a depth here, philosophical depth here, because the lives of young girls or teenagers are ones that are on display, are the films of their dead friends, but are under surveillance and they're being targeted. So when we see these people in a dollhouse, we've seen A play with dolls and kind of torture dolls and his A endings at the end of certain key episodes. But now we actually have like physical flesh and blood dolls. The Pretty Little Liars have been made into dolls. And it's kind of like a torture dungeon in a very large way. There's a lot of like kinkiness to it. There's a lot of weirdness to it. And I guess the Dollhouse episode is a point of contention for a lot of Pretty Little Liars fans. I'm not really sure why, because the hyper reality already went overboard by season three. Season three is when this show jumped the shark and never looked back. And I think that it should be applauded for that in a lot of different ways. It is a show that is willing to go completely in too deep with its craziness, and there is something to be admired about about Pretty Little Liars and its dedication to the most psychotic thematics possible. And I think that in the Dollhouse, you get the most like hyper literal metaphors you could ever hope to get from a show of this caliber, where their lives are on display, their lives are surveillance, their lives are torture, their lives are methodically planned, dementedly planned out for them, strategized, that they are dolls, they are playthings of patriarchal figures, vanishing men who exist in the shadows of gossip, lies, and secrecy. And that's fun. I like the Dollhouse episode because Mona is an incredible actor, an incredible character played by a remarkable actress. I love Mona to death this season. You really feel her absence. You really feel it. And I was very worried. I'm like, if Mona's gone, then this really, really, really sucks because the show, season five, takes a minute to to really pick up steam, to really to pick up some speed, and that kind of happens when Mona is her death scene, which I think is beautiful, which I think is so good. And I love the reveal of her still being alive. I love her coming back as like the ghost of Christmas past in the Alison De Laurentiis Christmas episode. It was kind of awesome. I love her makeup there. I think she's hot. I think she's really cool. I think she's a feisty little pint-sized psychotic wrecking ball. I think she's very fun. So MVP is definitely Mona. Jenna, um, one of my definite crushes from this show is hardly in it. She had like a really hot new sidekick. And I guess that after like a winter formal or whatever dance that was, we just give up on that storyline. We're just uninterested in exploring it further, which fucking is just blows, dude. It just that just sucks for me because Jenna, I think, is the only so far Jenna is the only genius absolutely unquestionably genius contribution that Pretty Little Liars has made to the teen drama art form is a character like Jenna, this chameleon of genre, this chameleon of style, this demonic entity within a very tender philosophy. That's Jenna, and I think she's incredible. And I really, really need to see more of her. I need to see more of Noel as well. It kind of emphasized him. There was a great emphasis placed on his character. They insisted upon him at the end of season 4, and then we really don't get we get virtually no time with the man in season 5. He appears, but it's I need to learn more about that guy. He's really cool. Jenna, I just need to spend more time with because the show is at its most inspired when it's capturing Jenna, when it's kind of being ruminative or you can tell the show is excited about itself when Jenna is on screen, and that's always really you get a real electric sort of a charge from Jenna's inclusion, and she wasn't included much at all this season, even though, like I said, she got like a really hot new sidekick, and then boom, gone. Whatever. Jenna, who the second half of this season asks, which is a bit upsetting and a kind of it's a bummer. It's a total bummer not having enough Jenna because I thought we were setting up a lot of cool things to at least explore, and we gave up excavating that character this season. So hopefully season 6 will have more Jenna for me. Toby became a fucking cop. He became a fucking cop. That loser, that absolute loser, creep, Spencer, please make out with every guy with an accent that you come across. I don't care. Do whatever you can. Get rid of the cop. Oh my god, Toby, what the fuck is wrong with you, homie? Caleb's back from his stint in the spinoff Ravenswood. Um, it's an it's annoyingly talked about quite a bit because I don't care what happened on that show, but I guess it's nice to see Caleb and Hannah together. The major flaw of this teen drama continues to be that they don't have a Pacey and Joey, they don't have a Lucas and Peyton, they don't have a Chuck and Blair. They don't even have like a Rory and a Jess. They don't have a big like romance that is just full of chemistry that is really just undeniable. It's not Arya and Fitz, and it's definitely not Toby and Spencer or Caleb and Hannah. It never was Emily and Paige. The closest it got was being Emily and Maya. That was the closest thing the show had to undeniable, legendary, iconic romantic chemistry in the show. The biggest flaw, the major flaw of Pretty Little Liars will always be that there is no fantastic couple. There is no legendary or iconic couple. And we're way too far into the show for the show to correct that course. So that'll always be the show's Achilles heel is the romantic components of the show, which aren't very compelling. I think that 5 seasons in, I can say that it, so far as the romantic qualities of the show is concerned, the show fails on a romantic level. It really does. There's nothing truly romantic about the show. It feels contrived, or it feels either convenient or forced. Um, Always problematic, never iconic. I can't really vibe or gel with it too much. So there's that. Season 5 was an entertaining season. It's just the fact that Allison is alive and the fact that Mona was believed to be dead but is actually alive. This betrays the show's philosophy all over again, like twice in one season. Um, I like the concept of, you know, young kids having more and more dead friends, and the lives of these young kids are films of their dead friends, and that's immortality, baby. They constantly feel hounded and targeted and surveilled and feeling like you're living a lie forever, perpetually. A large part of that is killed because Alison De Laurentiis is actually alive, because the show went through great pains to demonstrate that even if Allie is dead, as she was presumed to be in the first 4 seasons, almost guaranteed to be in the first 4 seasons. Like it was pretty like it's a very unfair show with its mystery, but that's fine. Cinematic mysteries should be unfair. I don't hold that against it. What I hold against it is went to great pains to show you that even though Allison is dead, she is very much at the center of this entire show. She is still very much the most important character in the entire show. The most significant character is a dead girl. I thought that was really poetic and really fascinating on political, philosophical, social, thematic levels. The fact that she's alive, the fact they did another fake out death with Mona, just brings into a question like what is even the value then? What is that? Like what's valuable about that then? Nothing. Nothing. If everything seems reversible, if nothing seems kind of final. And even when Mona was dead, Mona became the new central character for the episodes of season 5 where you assume that she's dead, where you think that she's been murdered. She becomes the most central character. Dead girls have immortality. That's their final gift for a very cruel departure from this world. And having Mona be alive again is doubling down on the idea that their philosophy means nothing and holds little to no weight at all. So that's really just aggravating. Because once again, when Mona was dead, she was still there constantly, not just in flashbacks, but her presence. She provided the forward momentum for the second half of this season for the entire narrative until it reached its climax at the dollhouse. Now, I do like the dollhouse conceptually. I am a fan of the dollhouse. Like I said, that there is no more hyperliteral way to express that that the way that young girls feel is that their lives are on some sort of grotesque display, that they are extremely performative, and that they are living within secrecy, hidden from the greater world, but being spied on by a demonic force. I think that's cool. I think the dollhouse is very cool. Um, I like that a lot. That's very nice, and I'm excited for season 6. It does pain me to know that absolutely the best that Pretty Little Liars has to offer almost certainly is behind us. And I never went through a single season saying it was masterful. That's kind of a letdown because I feel like the show had it in it. But the ambitions of the show seem to be a bit more superficial, which once again is fine. But superficial hyper reality can really destroy a tender and truthful philosophy. And I think Pretty Little Liars is the best example of that. I think Pretty Little Liars season 5 is a fun season. I think it's an entertaining season. I think it has a lot of cool things about it. And but ultimately I think it's a remarkably, I don't want to say vacuous. I think that that's far too harsh. It's a remarkably shallow chapter in Pretty Little Liars lore. It's remarkably shallow, but it's definitely enjoyable nonetheless. I'm hoping season 6 will give me more Jenna. I'm hoping season 6 will, I don't know, maybe be a little bit more intimate. Put more of an emphasis on the emotional and on the intimate than on the cinematic and suspenseful. I want something intimate from the show because that is obviously the major flaw of Pretty Little Liars is that it is so invested in its own style that intimacy is always the first casualty of hyperreality of style. So I'm wanting to I want this show to make me cry, honestly, and I'm still hopeful about that. I think Ila Marlene King is talented, extremely talented, and she can definitely make me cry. So do it already. We got 2 more seasons left. I want to cry. I want to feel intimate. Um, I want to feel like the show is kind of, I want to feel like the show is personal. I want to take the show personally. But thank you for watching my video. This is bad television. A primary theme of season 6 is of ownership, of autonomy, really magnifies in the first episode of the season where, well, I think the whole season, ownership and trauma are probably the largest themes expressed and entertained. Ownership with the dolls, it comes into like, it's very focused on these girls are objectified, these girls are made into objects, into playthings in an actual dollhouse. While I was watching season 6, I was thinking about all of the tropes that it has done and all the tropes that it hasn't. You know, the tropes of teen drama. I'm a lot more interested in the tropes of teen drama that the show um, explored and fell into and did more than suspense or mystery, honestly. But I was like, man, we haven't got a love triangle. That's interesting. I kind of dig the fact that some guy hasn't come between this like super tight knit group of girls, like sisters basically. And this season does that with Caleb and Hannah and Spencer. So, you know, never mind. Another trope that the show, I don't know, there might be like a flashback to it in the seventh and final season of the show, but we didn't see the graduation this season. You didn't see the girls graduate high school, which kind of sucks because we saw how much hell they went through in high school, like to survive and to be able to get there to graduation. Graduation, you know, it might not have meant a lot to me or to you, like personally experiencing it, but it's it's very rewarding for characters in teen dramas like Veronica Mars and Dawson's Creek and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's a victory, however small it might seem. It's a victory for our heroes, and I feel kind of like robbed that we didn't get graduation. They just did a time jump instead, and oh my God, this time jump is done so poorly that it's miserable. One Tree Hill. It makes One Tree Hill look effortless and graceful. It makes One Tree Hill's fifth season look like a ballet. You know, One Tree Hill did a time jump, and a time jump, I guess, is also now, thanks to One Tree Hill, like a trope of teen drama doing a time jump. And One Tree Hill did it well, did it a hell of a lot better than Pretty Little Liars did. In the first half of the season, because it is split up in tens, 10 episodes to wrap up the big A storyline, and then a time jump, and then 10 episodes to kind of get us hooked on another mystery, I guess the show's final mystery, which would make you think that the show is structured well, but it's not at all. It's incredibly misguided in its structure, even though 10 episodes and 10 episodes sounds like a very reasonable structure to attach your teen drama mystery to. The show fumbles the ball completely. This show fucks that up entirely. In the first half, we do get a lot of Spencer and Hannah together. We get that dynamic, and it's very funny. I adore the ways that Belisario and Benson play off each other, which kind of sucks that we kind of pin them against each other in the second half of the season. I think that certain things are meant to be inverted in the second half of the season. It's just done so poorly that it loses all of its poetry. Like I think the idea of showing us so much of Spencer and Hannah together in the first half of the season and their humorous, very funny kind of dynamic, and then kind of pitting them against each other with Caleb in the center in the second half of the season is a fool's errand, honestly. It doesn't have any power. And if it's about inverting a dynamic that was established in the first half of the season by turning it upside down, in the second half, it's just entirely unnecessary and uninteresting. I don't think the show is equipped to properly handle and explore trauma. Just like the way that the show handles mystery, Pretty Little Liars is more interested in the mechanics of trauma than trauma itself. It's far more dedicated to cinematically exploiting trauma than investigating it emotionally, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is arguably insincere and definitely shallow. By the way, The same exact criticism can be said of how the show treats trans representation and trans women. Oh, CC Drake. What a stupid fucking idea. An entirely unfair mystery, too. Like, how can I suspect that Cece is a suspect? Like, how can I be suspect of Cece if she's not there to be investigated by your audience? Like, you can't just bring someone back after not seeing them for like 2 fucking seasons and be like, oh, it's her. Like, f- off. You can't do that. But in all honesty, I stopped trying to figure out the mystery, I think, in the first season, because I'm like, no, this show is dedicated to the mechanics of suspense and mystery storytelling rather than the mystery itself. It's interested in the mechanics. It's interested in how it can fool its audience. It's interested in all of the genre tropes of mystery that the show can kind of entertain itself with. Uh, but the idea that Cece is this trans villain is more than cliched. It's more than a trope. It's a toxic cliche and a toxic trope, which is kind of fine, right? Because a large part of Pretty Little Liars is exploitation, but I always thought that a larger part of Pretty Little Liars was um, borderline feminist in a large way. I mean, these are very powerful girls, very strong and unique girls who have this bond, this unbreakable bond that like the patriarchy that men that I can't even begin to comprehend. You can't really comprehend the sisterhood of women. You really can't. And I guess it's unbreakable and it's life or death. And the young teenage girl experience is one of surveillance, one of being constantly targeted and punished for simply surviving your teenage years. Like that's the power and the strength of Pretty Little Liars, and it does play with these B movie archetypes and concepts. I just think that like it normally plays with them in a better way, right? Because when you reintroduce, I think, a terribly destructive trans stereotype from B movies into the 2010s teen drama landscape, it's entirely misguided and I think severely stupid. I think that the idea of CC Drake being this big bad A, being like Charles Drake, I guess, or sorry, Charles De Laurentiis being um Allison's long lost psychopathic kid brother turned trans woman, is entirely fucking hurtful, and it does nothing for the story. It's not saying anything political or philosophical or emotional even. All it's doing is exploiting trans representation um, for their own cinematic ends, for their own cinematic purposes. It's exploiting trans representation to be kind of sensationalist within your mystery, and then you kind of lose the teen drama part of it. Yeah, you kind of lose that which is sensitive. And I really just did not enjoy that at all. I think it was a very poorly designed mystery. And this being like a show that is kind of very, very obsessed with itself, specifically obsessed with the mechanics of mystery storytelling. To see it be this sloppy and this kind of irresponsible with its framing of its villain is, I think, outrageous. I think it's outrageous. Guys, guys, I'm not even mad about CC. I'm mad about this, what I'm gonna say right now. Where's Jenna? Jenna has rights, okay, and I have needs. No Jenna in season 6 is actual real insanity. Why not? Why not? Why isn't she here? She's my favorite thing about the entire show, and she's the only thing that is a genius thing about the show. The best contribution that Pretty Little Liars made to the teen drama art form is Jenna. Why isn't she here? This is a whole season without the coolest, the hottest, the sexiest, the most stylistically uh, captivating character. Why? Why? Why are you keeping Jenna from me? The fuck is wrong with you, I Marlene King? Okay? Where's Jenna? Why wasn't she here? You crushed my dreams and my spirit. I'm gonna go run face first into every car in the parking lot, out of protest because I need Jenna. All right, that's my fucking dream girl, and she is so amazing on the show. What she represents, it's a genius contribution to the art form. Oh my God, watch my previous videos if you haven't already, because I can't get enough of Jenna. I think she's cinematically infatuating. I think she's so captivating. And not having her in season 6 just adds insult to injury because it's already a terrible season of television. And now I just feel like you're insulting me personally. It's a personal attack not having Jenna here. Fuck you. Wow, that was heated. Okay, let me go to my notes. Let's keep it scripted. Can't go off script on this season because I fucking really hated it. Oh, here's a good note. Hold up. Emoji. Emoji. Yeah, because that's what they call the new A in the second half of the season. I think that's the biggest giveaway that it is Ali's mother as emoji because only old fucking people use that many emojis in text messages. That should have been your dead giveaway. Hold up. Emoji is out there killing eggs. He's holding Emily's eggs for ransom, holding her feminine autonomy, anatomy even for ransom. That's kind of interesting. And it's very wicked. Yeah, I thought that that was a piece of misfortune of kind of like brutality that hit. I was like, okay, I'm playing with this metaphor. I like that we're making it like this, like A has now robbed Emily of her feminine nature. I think that's incredible. It's incredibly fucked up, but that's one of the few things that this season did that I thought actually landed and that I found like pretty striking. Once you get acclimated to the narrative jet lag, the show is actually pretty boring after the time jump. Sarah Harvey is a stupid character. Let's go back to Jenna. Please. It's the only thing I enjoy talking about this show anymore. Jenna had presence. Sarah has nothing. No power, no style. Nothing is felt when she appears. I choose black sunglasses over black gloves. Poor substitute for what Jenna brought to the show. And yes, I do feel like Sarah Harvey was poorly, sloppily occupying the same archetypal space in season 6 that is normally occupied by Jenna. I fucking hate Sarah Harvey. Just reminds me of Jenna. And Jenna could do Jenna could steal a scene without saying a fucking word. That's how powerful her physical poetry was. This is the most revealing sequence of the show. There's a sequence where we see a binary montage of ones and zeros representing a text Hannah has sent to the villain. We see, God, we see satellite dishes, we see cell phone towers, we see all these ones and zeros just spiraling outwards. This show has lost the plot. If we are this cinematically invested in the mechanics of communication, of narrative, the show's about misplaced guilt. It's bad ideas, bad writing, bad execution, bad structure, bad season. If this show is this obsessed with I think that montage of the ones and zeros from Hannah's text being sent to a emoji, I, I I think that that's the most revealing sequence in the entire sixth season of Pretty Little Liars because it shows just how obsessed this show has become with the mechanics of communication. Like Like, we have lost the plot so far that we are now obsessed with the binaries of zeros and ones from cell phone towers. Like, we're that obsessed now with just the mechanics of communication of the narrative and how that narrative is communicated. It's just it's nonsense, honestly. It's nonsense. The show has lost the plot entirely, and Allie's mother is still alive. Death means fucking nothing in this universe. It really doesn't mean anything. Everything's reversible. This is such a poorly written season of television that I do find it very, very, very insulting, and I think destroys in one fell swoop all of the goodwill that could have possibly been gleaned from the first 5 seasons, most of which I have a lot of issues with, right? Like, I'm not even a huge fan of all 5 previous seasons, but that shit looks like Shakespeare now compared to where we are in season 6. I'm thankful that there's only one more season because it it is not often that a show takes this severe of a nosedive. And season 6 of Pretty Little Liars, I think, is one of the most embarrassing failures that I've witnessed in covering teen dramas. It's embarrassing. I can't even really take it seriously. But I'll be back in a week to talk about season 7. If Jenna's not there, I swear to God, I will burn this entire place to the ground. I think that's what I'll do. Thank you for watching. Oi, as I'm sure is bloody obvious, I am not your cult boyfriend. As you can tell on my pitch perfect Cockney accent, I am his bloody mental evil twin. Okay, so when you step back, when you put some distance between yourself and Pretty Little Liars, you can see it in its totality. You can see it as a whole. And 160 episodes, 7 seasons, I can step back and I can go, Pretty Little Liars is a fascinating experiment. An experiment within narratives, an experiment within genre, an experiment within characters, within archetypes, an exercise of different storytelling formats. Eh, It's a very, very fascinating piece of television on the whole. I'm Marlene King, the showrunner, the brains behind Pretty Little Liars. Is kind of fearless in a large way, and that way is artfully. Uh, Pretty Little Liars is a show that I don't really think cares about mastery. I think it's an experiment in mystery storytelling in the within the teen drama landscape. I think that it is invaluable for sure. As a show, yeah, there's 1,000 mistakes within it, but I feel like there ought to be, because it's derived of B-movie exploitation. It's derived of teen drama, which is already a kind of hysterical subgenre of television to begin with. It is an experiment within modes of cinematic storytelling that are exploitative in manifest. So there are going to be problems within every single season, or else it's holding back. And Pretty Little Liars is not a show that ever holds its punches, never pulls its punches, right? It always goes 1,000%. It sees a shark in the water, and you better believe I'm Marlene King, and the writers of Pretty Little Liars are going to jump it. immediately without hesitation. I don't think I've ever seen a more intriguing postmodern experiment than Pretty Little Liars was. The flaws can obviously be argued away on the basis of genre bending. If Gossip Girl told us that our lives are gossip, if the OC told us that our lives are soap operas, if Dawson's Creek told us that our lives aren't movies, or maybe they are, Pretty Little Liars is telling us that our lives are exploitation. They're the products of exploitation genre tropes. Our lives are exploitative, and we are constantly being exploited. And how Pretty Little Liars expresses its thesis is through genre bending, is through complete exploration and transcendence of archetypes. It is through a mystery that is designed, crafted to be unfair, because Pretty Little Liars is a show that is far more interested and obsessed with exploring the mechanics of mystery rather than the mystery itself. Because it's interested in meta narratives and narratives and communication. It's interested in television. It's interested in the unfairness of mysteries. Every great mystery is like fundamentally an unfair one because there has to be some sort of uh, dishonesty on the part of the author of the mystery in order for it to actually work properly. Blending that with teen drama, the most sensitive and hysterical subgenre of television possible, you get something that is kind of surprisingly jarring and rewarding. It's rewarding on an intellectual level because Pretty Little Liars is a show that navigated um, all of these complexities, not only of pathos, but of plot, of the plot mechanics. And I think by watching Pretty Little Liars, like, deconstruct every part of the mystery and teen drama format, you're really able to see the distinctions, of objects within the narrative, and you're also able to just like a game, just like how the show gamifies trauma, gamifies exploitation, gamifies romance, and gamifies mystery. Just like how teen dramas gamify high school. You're able to kind of see how it works, how each component of it works, and you're able to like because Pretty Little Liars will shove something where it's not supposed to go just to see the kind of the machinations of it, just to see what would happen to the cogs of the narrative if it did force something where it doesn't ordinarily go. It takes every chance that it can. Um, and that makes Pretty Little Liars ultra fascinating. It makes it impossible to ignore. Pretty Little Liars season 7 is all over the place. First and foremost, I love the tongue-in-cheek I'm Marlene King cameo at the very end of the final episode. Where Arya and Fitz are getting married, and they're like, "Does anyone have anything to say? Like, any reason why these two should not be wed? Speak now or forever hold your peace." And a cell phone goes off, and you have, war flashbacks of A texts from all the way back from season 1, and it's I'm Arlene King as the like wedding photographer in the very back, and she's like, "Oh, sorry," kind of meaning that the writers the writer's done. You don't have to actually worry about the auteur of the show, about the showrunner um, keeping our characters from a happy ending anymore. She's not going to interrupt, and the characters are free to hug each other and have that kind of happy ending. That was a lovely tongue-in-cheek moment. My God, I was not expecting it, and oh my, I grinned very wide at that. That was a nice touch. Season 7 is really dedicated to the idea of twins. Twins annoy the fuck out of me. because I think that evil twins, that trope, is a sign of creative bankruptcy, but it's kind of forgivable in Pretty Little Liars on the basis of it has explored every other B movie trope possible, every single other one, and if it deliberately didn't explore evil twins, then that would be an act of cowardice. And I, Marlene King, is many things, but a coward is not one of them. So we explore twins through Jessica and Mary, Drake and De Laurentiis. Even Allison and Emily have a pair of twins. There are twin archetypes. There are mirrored scenarios within this season of the grand narrative of Pretty Little Liars, and of course, Spencer has a twin named Alex Drake. Now, Troyan Belisario, she commits to the bit. I think her accent is horrible. I don't know if it was meant to be like masterful as an accent. I think it's ridiculous. Her Cockney accent is absurd. But, so is everything else. So are the trappings. I think that Troyan Belisario, she is far and away the most impressive performer on all of Pretty Little Liars. I said this in the first season, and it's remained true until the very end. She acts circles around everyone else on the show. Often, the show gives her a lot to do, and she pulls it off. I think that I, Marlene King and company saw that, and in season 3 they gave her way too much to do, and she couldn't necessarily pull it off. And in season 7, once again, let's put everything on Troyan Belisario's shoulders. At least this time it was funny. And funny in a grotesque sort of exploitation movie way. It was funny. It was entertaining. Do I feel like it added much to the metaphorical value of the show? Not really. Not really at all. No, it was just the final shark, the boss, the big boss shark out there. The final shark of the show hadn't jumped yet, and I, Marlene King, was like, "All right, hold my beer. We're gonna do this fucking thing." And I get that she had to have an accent or something different about her so that we could differentiate her from Spencer. But I feel like there were other ways to do it that were kind of less distracting, probably is the nicest way to put it. I hate that accent. I hate that character. Why was she even crazy? She shouldn't even have been psychotic. Like in Pretty Little Liars, like psychopathy, um, deranged psychoses are, I guess, kind of transferable. They're contagious. Everyone goes a little crazy sometimes. I was so upset with season 6 because I didn't have any Jenna, and Jenna is best part of this entire show. The only truly genius contribution made by I, Marlene King within Pretty Little Liars is Jenna Marshall, this genre chameleon, this true muse of the show. Because within Jenna, within her dark and twisted and shadowy archetype, that even over like 6 entire seasons of actual appearances, never could be normalized. It's a dangerous component that is full of just a stylistic ecstasy. That's what you get with Jenna Marshall. And Tammin Sursok, her performance is perfect. She could steal a scene without saying a word. That is how powerful her physical poetry was. She is so stopping. And we get a lot of Jenna this season. I think we get the most Jenna that we've gotten since like season 3. Uh, and I loved every moment spent with her. The show itself is at its most inspired when it is focused on her, when she is at its center. That's why I think Jenna Marshall is like a symbolic muse of the show. She is that genre bending quality, the original genre bending quality from the first season. She is the transformative power of the show in manifest in physical form, and no one but Tammin Sursok could have performed the character, and no one but I, Marlene King, I think, could truly understand the capabilities, the seemingly endless capabilities of a character like Jenna Marshall, who blows my mind every time I think about her in depth. Every time I think about Jenna Marshall, my mind is completely blown because it's one of the most genius characters that I've ever seen in any form in any piece of media. Jenna Marshall has so much physical poetry to her, so much power, so much like cinematic ecstasy to her that yeah, that I'm in your cult boyfriend paradise every time she's on screen. It's perfect. It's perfect. And I liked the amount of time we were able to spend with her this season. I especially liked that Jenna called in some muscle, a helper by the name of Noel Kahn. I love Noel Kahn. I've loved him since the first season. There's something of a wrecking ball about his archetype, about his character. There was kid was certainly a firecracker. The kid was trouble, and I wanted to see more and more and more of him. And in season seven, we find out that he's also like homicidal and psychopathic, which makes him have a lot in common with like most of the characters on the show. Because this show, like I said, being a psychopath is contagious. But I love hanging out with Noel. We get a lot of Noel in the first half of the season. In fact, the first half ends with Noel having the most brutal on-screen death of the entire show. He attacks the girls with an axe, and the axe falls out of his hand, lands like into the floor behind him, and the girls push him, and he stumbles and falls down, and must fall down directly with his neck on the axe blade, and just gets decapitated. His head rolls down the stairs in front of the other girls because they're split up at that time, and oh my god. Flo's curtains fade out on Noel Kahn. I love Noel Kahn. Um, he doesn't have like the same amount of power as Jenna Marshall, but what he has is still like exciting, and it's still sexy, and it's still like it's still completely cinematic. I loved being around Noel Kahn. I wish we got to know a little bit more about Noel Kahn, but there's also the less is more aspect of Noel that I kind of appreciate. Of I have to fill in the blanks on a lot of Noel's psyche, on a lot of Noel's like actual core as a human character. I have to fill in a lot of the blanks, and he becomes more deranged the more I try to figure him out. So I suppose I do appreciate the fact that I don't know everything about Noel. I know a decent amount about him, but we never truly saw him be emotionally vulnerable, and maybe that's because he's a sociopath and doesn't have those kinds of tender moments. Maybe the real Noel is this madman grinning with an axe, chasing girls down a hall, trying to murder them, talking about smelling their fear, something he learned from Jenna. Jenna. I'm so happy that Jenna came back in such a huge way in season seven, because the show desperately needed it. Season six is still like one of the worst seasons of television that I've ever watched. Season seven, it's still sloppy. It's still not great. Uh, in fact, it's still pretty bad. But you have to ask, is it deliberately kind of disorganized? Is it deliberately kind of vulgar in its writing? Is it deliberately like are the obscenities of its own betrayal of its own narrative like are those deliberate? Because those are also tropes of B movies, of mystery, of teen drama even. Because every time Jenna Marshall is on screen, there is there's something transcendent about it. There's something amazing about it. And that's where you have to step back and look at it as a whole, right? Like, I think Pretty Little Liars is an expansive, a giant, um, macro study, a giant, like, meta-analysis even, a giant, experiment tying together all loose forms of like so-called like pulp literature or teen magazines, like tying all forms of like seemingly lowbrow material together to see just exactly what would happen if you unified these disparate parts, if you unified these unique components of so-called lowbrow material, lowbrow media, like what would happen if you unified them? Would you reach something transcendent, or is it just an interesting experiment or narrative exercise that lasts like 160 episodes? I think it is something transcendent. I think that it is something kind of phenomenal, and I think that the experiment paid off in a huge way by kind of reinventing the wheel. Teen drama, television itself, I don't think was completely the same after Pretty Little Liars came and, like a wrecking ball, um, knocked so many of the pieces down and put them back together in a Frankenstein's monster sort of way that still was like sexy, alluring, and captivating. And I think that that's best represented in the physical poetry of Jenna Marshall, this blind demonic girl walking around just scheming, you know, just scheming murder, just scheming lies, just bending genres. Every room that she walks into, there's this ripple effect, there's this causality, there's this fucking wormhole of genre, of the trappings, of scenery, of atmosphere. Jenna Marshall is the vehicle for all of the transformative power of Pretty Little Liars, and Pretty Little Liars was a massively transformative show to the teen drama art form. And that's what makes Jenna Marshall the most genius contribution to the art form, because it was at its most free when it was exploring and framing, capturing Jenna Marshall. I love you, Jenna. That's dream girl quality right there. That's my new cult girlfriend. There are a lot of fascinating things about Pretty Little Liars as a whole. But like I said, the final season, season 7, is remarkably flawed. But you have to step back and look at it as this fully conceived experiment. And you have to basically act like Mona does when she first sees the game board in board game in Pretty Little Liars season 7. Now she kind of reverts back to loser Mona for a moment and then transforms once again. But you have to be like Mona. I think that I'm Arlene King sees teen drama viewers as at least partly sociopathic. At least with some morbid curiosities, and I think that Mona is a perfect um, kind of double for the audience this season. I mean, she plays a double agent, and I think that the audience does too. I think the audience has become so involved with the mystery, and I'm Arlene King has become so involved in deconstruction. I'm sorry, in deconstructing just what it means to even be a viewer or a spectator and what is being viewed. Because the audience is a key member of any mystery. The audience is the most important invisible party of any cinematic mystery because it's the audience who you want to be the ones who are investigating. It's the audience who you want to trick and lie to, not necessarily the fictive characters in the mystery itself. You want them to be kind of like Mona, kind of playing all sides and looking at all angles and trying to figure out how this damn game of teen drama mystery truly operates. Like, what makes it tick? What makes it work so seemingly efficiently. And it works so efficiently because it's so dishonest and it's so unfair and it's so cinematic. I think that cinematic is a synonym for deceitful. Pretty Little Liars. The show is extremely pretty. The show has extremely attractive people in it. Mysteries are extremely attractive. Teen dramas are extremely attractive. They're pretty, but everything that is cinematic is a lie. Right, so I think the thesis is even in the title of the show itself, that I think we have to be like Mona and just allow the show to drive us a little crazy. I remember this show broke my brain back in season 3 when I wasn't prepared for just, the hyper reality of it all, which is wild that I'm talking about, like, French post-structuralist, like, philosophy when I'm talking about Pretty Little Liars, but it makes so much sense to me. Pretty Little Liars is a show that wants to drive its viewers a bit mad, and I think I, Marlene King, knows that that is actually a something that's satisfiable within the viewer, and it's something that the viewer is yearning for. It's something the viewer has an appetite for or becoming obsessed with a mystery or a show or a character or a fantasy. And I, Marlene King satisfies those while at the same time, like simultaneously reinventing the wheel of mystery and of teen drama, which makes I, Marlene King a master in a very peculiar kind of way. Because Pretty Little Liars is far from a masterpiece. But it might be more important than that. It might be more interesting than simply a masterpiece. It's dynamic becoming, it is not static being, it is constantly experimenting. The cogs are set in place. I'm Arlene King, put them there herself. And when you step back, you can see it working when it shouldn't. You can see everything works. You can see the experiment. And you're like Mona, first seeing that board game, and you're just in awe of the composition. Thank you, Pretty Little Liars, for being such a fascinating show for me to discover, for me to investigate, for me to analyze, and for me to watch. I greatly enjoyed my time in Rosewood.